Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another evening of superb racing action in the one and only series you all know and love. It is none other than the Skip Barber Community Trophy Season 5 as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform, available only on PC. That is iRacing of course, and proudly sponsored by both Musical Money Limited and Old Git Racing Team. And that's right folks, we are back on another Sunday evening, and as quickly as we've picked everything up from what was Rudskogen Motor Centre last time out, we have made our way to the Netherlands from Norway to the premier Dutch racing circuit. That's right, we are here at Circuit Zandvoort, a circuit that you cannot do without on the European continent, and indeed this has been one of the oldest circuits when it comes to European circuits. Opened in 1948, having been designed by none other than John Hugenholz, the legendary circuit designer, who is infamous of course for designing so many circuits, not just in Europe but also around the world, including none other perhaps than the figure of 8 circuit at Suzuka. Well, this circuit in its own right is a legend, given the fact that it has played host to open wheel racing for as long as it has existed, and played host to what was the Dutch Grand Prix as it was known back then, and then the Dutch Formula 1 Grand Prix as it would go on to be known from all the way from 1952 all the way to 1985. Well, this circuit that you see here today is not the original circuit. Indeed, the original circuit closed in 1985. It was replaced by a much smaller circuit in what was 1989, and then that circuit was closed down due to noise pollution concerns, and then suddenly in 2001 upsprung the third iteration, the third life of the Circuit Zandvoort circuit, and this is where we are today. Known in full as the CM.com Circuit Zandvoort course for sponsorship reasons, well, this circuit has been open since 2001, and as of 2020, we have seen the return of Formula 1 to its wonderful tarmac, of course being redesigned by none other than what was a gentleman named Mr. Zaffarelli, and that being the redesign with regards to the banking of some of the corners and also the facilities to make them even more modern. I want to tell you one thing, this fully modernised Circuit Zandvoort is one not to be underestimated, because whether it be Formula 1, Formula 2, Formula 3, or indeed today Skippy's taking it on, it is an absolute wonder of our circuit, and what a circuit is going to be for our racing, because over its 2.64 mile length, the understanding is that it's going to be very difficult to break away, and the slipstream is going to be absolutely pivotal in terms of deciding where you are in that running order come the final checker flag. But that's quite a bit of an overview of Circuit Zandvoort. Indeed, we've got so engrossed into the details of the circuit. Where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side. As you tune in tonight on YouTube, go to youtube.com and search for Paul Walsh Productions or PWP, and you can be tuning in there and joining many of our spectators who tune in on a weekly basis. And if you are there right now, don't be shy, feel free to say hi and let us know how you're doing and how your weekend's been. And if you do have a bit of a frown because of the fact it might be back to work tomorrow, well, let's turn that frown upside down into a smile, because indeed we should be celebrating the fact we are looking forward to plenty of fantastic racing. In the commentary booth you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'll be bringing you all your racing action as it unfolds here in the Netherlands and indeed for the entirety of the season. And speaking of our schedule for tonight, times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinate Time, UTC. As we can see, in approximately 12 minutes' time, we make our way into the qualifying session, 10 minutes in duration, indeed, as always, but we make our way back to our 10-minute open format of qualifying today. More on that very shortly in terms of what that entails, and then after that, well, we'll have the first of our 2 races. It will, of course, be the round number 9 sprint race, and that'll be 20 minutes in duration at 5 to 8 this evening. It's scheduled to get underway, and then after that, we take a brief breather before returning at what will be approximately 20 past 8 for the 30-minute feature, or round number 10, and this being our final round on the European continent, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, whilst we have been packing up our bags and making our way gradually around Europe from the United Kingdom to Norway, now to the Netherlands. After this, we will be leaving Europe and we won't be coming back for the rest of the season. So right now, our European stars, well, they'll definitely want to do well on the home continent, because when they go abroad, it'll be in the hands of many other drivers there who will be the home heroes. So as we make our way into this round, well, let's give you a recap of the season so far and how the standings stand. And here we can see the season so far. We have completed our first 8 rounds. We began the first 3 race weekends in the United Kingdom, and that was at the Brands Hatch Circuit, then Donington Park Circuit and Alton Park, and then last time out we made our way to Norway for the Rudskogen Motor Centre, a circuit that many were wondering exactly how they get on. It's not an easy circuit to battle at, as Rudskogen, but our drivers put on an absolutely entertaining show, no doubt about that, and we got to see some incredible battling in both races, also a couple of nasty shunts, but for the most part, our drivers did exceptionally well there, and indeed put on such a display. As we come into Circuit Zandvoort today, this is going to feel as though, in a way, it's Rudskogen absolutely on steroids. However, the slipstream effect is going to be so strong around here, plus the combination of the corners, that it's going to be an absolute treat for the eyes. But as we can see, there on the very right-hand side, we return to our 10-minute open qualifying format for this round, having previously seen it in rounds 5 and 6 at Alton Park, and that does mean all the drivers will be out on circuit, but more on that very shortly. For after today, the 18th of January, then we'll be making our way to the US of A to complete, firstly, the first half of the season next week, and that'll be the Detroit Grand Prix at Belle Isle Circuit, and then we'll storm our way into the second half of the season with some absolute highlights, including Summit Point, Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, and Long Beach's Street Circuit, and then we make our way all the way to Australia for our final 3 race weekends, where rounds 19 and 20 will be the Phillip Island Circuit. Then we'll make our way to the Oran Park Raceway that no longer exists in real life, but it has been immortalised in iRacing, and then we'll bring the curtain down for rounds 23 and 24 at the Mount Panorama Circuit. So with that all in mind, ladies and gentlemen, as we come into this round, let's stay in the present, or perhaps we should just go a little bit back into the past, because of course, we need to talk a little bit about our championship standings before we talk about our circuit for today. So as we can see in the Drivers' Championship, here is your top 15. There's one name that stands at the very top. He has not been budged ever since what has been at rounds 3 and 4. It is Steff Herrmann, who leads on 267 points with an advantage right now that continues to grow. And indeed, understandably for him, it's going to be an advantage that he'll never want to let go of at 84 points. If he's able to secure his first win of the season tonight, and indeed match it with a good result in the other race, he may just become the favourite for this season, given the fact that he has been Mr. Consistent. In 8 races, he's secured 6 podiums, and he has yet, I do believe, to finish outside the top 5, although I will double check that very quickly. And indeed, he has yet to finish outside the top 5, and he has claimed 8 out of 8 top 5s in this season. Nobody else has come close to Herrmann, but the man who is closest in the time in town right now when it comes to points is Geoff Randall on 183 points, and he has moved into that second place ahead of both Brian Kelly and Adam Tompkins. Now, Adam Tompkins has dropped 2 places because he wasn't on the grid last time out, but we can expect him to be back in full force today, potentially, as I do look to the entry list just to see whether he's there, and not at the moment. But then again, our drivers are still making their way to the circuit if they're not already there. But one thing we can definitely say is that Geoff Randall right now, well, he's yet to take a win of his own, but he has had 2 podiums, and whilst he couldn't quite match up to his success at Alton Park last time out, where he picked up that double podium in an incredible round, a 5th place in race number 1 and an 8th place in race number 2 at Rudskogen, it all seemed to go a bit backwards for Randall by comparison with Herrmann, whereby a great pace in qualifying to put himself forward, and in race 1 he matched it with that 5th place finish. However, in race number 2, in his own words, he felt as though his underlying pace became weaker and weaker, and he needs to look into it coming into this round because he doesn't know what exactly went wrong in the feature race at Rudskogen. Meanwhile, your 3rd place man, Brian Kelly, he's jumping his way all the way up the field, albeit after the high of the feature race win at Alton Park, we absolutely delivered on strategy. Well, in his own words, in his post-round interview last time out, ladies and gentlemen, many of you may remember, he seemed a little bit disappointed and dejected, given the fact that nothing quite seemed to be the way it was at Alton Park. However, despite not having the pace, he did have the ability to be inside the top 5, and that's what he went for in the end. But I get the feeling he's looking for one thing and one thing only. He's looking for podiums, if not wins. Adam Tompkins sits in 4th, as we mentioned earlier then, not on the grid last round, and closing in on him, only 8 points behind, is Marcus Byfeld. Adam Miles sits in 6th, and right now Adam Miles definitely looking to be very strong after what was that victory in the feature race last time out to Byfeld's win in the sprint race. Both of them now having what is 2 wins to their name, and then you do have Daniel Atuga, Nathan Wade, Renko Palacia, and Christopher Geros completing that top 10. And keep your eyes out in particular for Remco Palacia and Christopher Geros, because both drivers are having very different fortunes at the moment. Palacia really had a nightmare day last time out at what was the Rudskogen Motor Centre with nothing quite going right. Meanwhile, Geros, by comparison, well, some would say he could have finished on the podium if things had gone his way. They didn't quite go that way in the end. However, he is building momentum. Dennis Johansson sits in 11th place, best of the rest, ahead of Neil Gardner, with then Titus de Jong, Peter Zorpanki, and Martin van Ikkelen round off that top 15. Outside the top 15, here we can see from 16th through to 30th place, we do have Gordon van den Bergen, who had a nightmare day, and indeed, the Dutch contingent on our grid had a bit of a nightmare at Rudskogen Motor Centre for the most part. He's ahead of Marcus Dorner, who's picked up a couple more penalty points recently. But then we do have George Mattock in 18th place. And well, it was great to speak to George last time out. And he was saying that he's still trying to shake off all the rust and get himself a little bit closer to those who are further up the field. So keep your eyes out for him as he continues to crusade his way forwards. He'll be hoping for some more points. Jesus Cabal and Josephine Becker complete your top 20, with Chris Wayne in 21st place ahead of Ludwig Sauer. And then completing that top 30 is Jerome Velink ahead of Simon Wareham. And then Tom Payne Kane is 25th, with Kevin Budgeon in 26th place. He's also been one to watch. He's been enjoying himself since his return to the grid after 4 races, with Terry McGrath in 27th ahead of James McRitchie. And it's Klaus Biedermann and Mark Beckhouse who complete your top 30. So that's the standings then, and as we come from the past into the present, let's talk about our host circuit for today. It is, of course, the Grand Prix layout of Circuit Zandvoort, located near the town of Zandvoort. You could say the municipality of Zandvoort. They're two interchangeables, but either way, they're in the North Holland province of the Netherlands, and a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just for their brilliant simulator, but the track maps that come with it. And indeed, this track map will be absolutely iconic to anyone who's a big fan of international motorsport. And as we said earlier, 2.64 miles, 14 corners, but this circuit has a lot more than just the numbers, and a two-dimensional track map does not quite bring to life this circuit. In the fact that as our drivers make their way around here, it is absolutely full of corner banking, road camber, and also elevation changes, primarily, of course, at turn 1 at Tarzanbocht, where it's just as easy to go around the outside for a move as it is to go up the inside, and that's why the big themes here, you can attack on both sides of the circuit at most corners. Hugenholzbocht, of course, named after one of the original designers of this circuit, or that is turn 3 there, with plenty of banking now, while drivers need to go as high as possible after exiting Gladbocht, and then as they'll make the way all the way through turns 4, 5, and 6, through Hunserung, and then into Slotmakkerbocht and Schlevak, they'll then come into the sweeping off camber right-hander at turn 7 to jump their way into Mastersbocht at turn 8. And then it's into the switchback hairpin sequence of Bocht 9, or turn 9, and CM.com Bocht turn 10, and then they'll make their way down the short stretch in towards the Hans-Ernst chicane at turns 11 and 12, a very sharp right-hand right-angle corner followed up by an elongated left-hander, and it's into Bocht 13, and flat out they'll go all the way through turn 14, Arie Lulienda Bocht, named after, of course, the two-time Indianapolis 500 winner hailing from the Netherlands, where he grew up racing on this circuit, albeit some original guys all those many decades ago, and that will be to the finish line or on to another lap for all of our drivers. But without further ado, before we do go racing, also a quick recap of the rules. This, of course, is an open setup series where drivers bring setups of their choosing to each and every session. Car fuel loads, they will continue to be restricted to 47% for all race day sessions, but that change at Alton Park, sticking with the rules and regulations there. It seems to open up the strategic variety, but also brought the window down slightly, as what we're expecting for the feature race. But as for our qualifying session tonight, we are back to the 10-minute open format. So what does that mean? The session is open, so all the drivers can go out onto the circuit at any point in that time, but they are all out there together, and therefore they've got to try and find the space to work for a lap of their own, and also try and pick up a little bit of the slipstream, which could really be the make or break decider in qualifying. And each driver's fastest lap set in the session shall set their grid position for the sprint race. But when we go to the races, well, the races shall commence by a standing start, as is the tradition of the Skip Barber Community Trophy, and one fast repair available is in each race. A drive-through penalty shall be awarded at 17 instant points. Get to 21, you will be disqualified. And as for how we set the grid for the feature race, or round 10 tonight, it will be based on the finishing positions of the round 9 sprint race, but the top 15 positions will be inverted. So what that means is, the winner of our first race today, they will start in 15th for the feature race, and we continue that inversion all the way down to the 15th place finisher, who earns themselves pole position for the feature, and then those who finish 16th and downwards, you guessed it right, they start exactly where they finished from the sprint into the feature race. And keep in mind, in the feature race there is one mandatory pit stop where drivers must refuel the car, but we don't expect them to take any tyre changes. But as we make our way then back to circuit side, well, ladies and gentlemen, we are not too far away now from going into what is our qualifying session with just under 2 minutes left on the clock, and we do look to Steff Herrmann, the championship leader, currently the full fastest in this practice warm-up session. He'll be quite happy with that, but the man who needs to get a bit of a move on is the man who's currently the fastest out there, Adam Miles, as he decides to leave the pit lane. Now, we do know, of course, Miles, one of the highest rated drivers here in terms of his performances over consecutive seasons, and indeed in the iRacing official Skippy races as well. He is one of the highest drivers when it comes to iRating, so therefore he is no stranger to doing well in these machines, but we will see what he's going to be able to do here, because he's definitely had a season thus far, which has been one that's been hard fought, and indeed many will remember the two wide battles of Alton Park between himself and none other than Adam Tompkins. Well, unfortunately, it did end up in a bit of disarray for Adam Tompkins in a very close battle, but at the same time, I do think in the end the stewards did come down that as a racing instant, because it was firm, fair and furious racing. But for Miles, of course, he needs to keep that momentum strong if he wants to close down Herrmann. Now, we do have two new names on the grid today, and we will introduce both of them when we do go into qualifying, as they're currently in the pit lane and out their cars. But it is two members from the Dutch contingents. We have two home heroes here today, looking to make some very very strong debuts, albeit to make a debut at your home circuit is, of course, to put more pressure on yourself, and I hope they do realise that. But as we do see Roddy van der Meerden roaring his way on through, he's another one of our Dutch drivers here, and, well, after the frustrations he's had over the last couple of rounds, he'll be hoping that here today is a little bit more straightforward. However, in that number 4, well, the one thing he's going to need to do right from the first instance is make sure he gets a good qualifying lap in. And we'll talk a little bit more about the importance of a qualifying lap very shortly. It's there, he just gets a bit too close to another car at Masters box, and then goes onto the brakes with the rear of the car sliding loose. And, well, we hopefully won't see any of that in qualifying or the race, as somebody else decides to get it very sideways there, off camera, coming on through what's turn number 9. Couldn't quite see who that was, but without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, practice has ended. It means now it's time to go into qualifying. But who's going to put it on pole? Let's find out as we head into the 10-minute open qualifying session. And so qualifying gets underway. It's going to be 10 minutes, go, go, go. And as all our drivers begin to emerge from the pit lane, well, we say hello, hello, hello to Michelle Pearson in the YouTube chat there. And good evening to you, Michelle. I hope you're doing well. And, well, great to have you tuning in with us. But as all our drivers make the way out, you can see the big scramble immediately here. Everybody piling out the pit lane as quickly as they can. And we'll do keep in mind, of course, because we do have 2 races tonight. When qualifying does see the clock get to 0, we do not have any overtime, as I've been made aware. Indeed, we see qualifying come to an end as soon as that, so our drivers have 10 minutes to set their lap. They've got to get it done within the 10 minutes. They cannot afford to essentially be on a final lap, and it could be the best lap of the session. And then suddenly, with 2 seconds to go, they're only a couple of metres from the finish line, and, well, they don't quite make it when the clock strikes 0, and that lap will be invalidated. We will then take their previous best lap in the session. So all the pressure is on for these 10 minutes, but look at how crowded it is right now as they take on the Grand Prix circuit. And therefore, we have the best part of what is a grand total of 30-plus drivers here today. Understandably, there is not going to be too much room. Oh, goodness me, as we've had a bit of a technical hitch, ladies and gentlemen. We will be right back. We do apologise for that. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We do apologise for that. We're not quite sure what happened, but whilst we may have missed the best part of about 5 minutes of this qualifying session, well, things thankfully are just heating up here as we come back to your live circuit side pictures. And, well, as we can see, the man who set the initial benchmark in qualifying, well, it is none other than Adam Miles with a 1 minute 51.40, or to be precise, a 3.98. He's a tenth faster than anybody else out there at the moment, but understandably, I think some other drivers here will be pushing harder and harder just see whether they can close up to him, as he's trying right now not to give the slipstream to anybody. I think he'll feel as though he can get this job done without needing some slipstream of his own. But as all the drivers head on around, well, we need to give a bit of an introduction to a couple of new faces on the grid today, and in particular those newcomers being two Dutch drivers who are here, and well, one of whom is none other than Tim Hendrickson, as he makes his way around right now. Very happy to see him out here today in what is the lovely blue and orange car there. So a bit of inspiration, I do believe, from what might be the Dutch official orange colour, and perhaps also the football kit of the Dutch national team. But as he comes on out, he makes his debut, and alongside him making a debut as well is none other than Nico Heinen. Albeit I think Heinen's currently in the pit lane, and I don't know if he's going out there at the moment or where he's going to choose to start from the very back of the field. That is all drivers heading around right now. Well, one of the big question marks is, do you need a good qualifying lap here in the Circuit Zandvoort in order to be able to win a race? The answer, well, you want to try and start towards the front of the field. Yes, very much so, because this will be pack-based racing, although we've said that for most rounds this season. We have seen it for most rounds, but around here you want to be within the top 5 or 6 if you can, and therefore try to follow the leader for the opening few laps to break away from the rest of the field and then eventually go battling for the win. So qualifying is going to be quite valuable to get yourself into that top 10. Beyond that, you'll need to do the rest when it comes to the race conditions. Albeit Adam Miles right now trying to prove that he can run away in this qualifying session as he goes even higher in terms of pole. Well, 1 minute 51.161, but how high will he go before all is said and done? He's still got a bit more out there to find, no doubt about it, although the same can be said for several drivers out here. I think still finding some time as we're getting towards the end, as Tim Hendrickson, he puts himself to pole position on 51.016, goes to the gravel there to make sure he doesn't impede anybody, but the newcomer here, well, right now definitely is going to be setting the time tower light there for his fans who'll be watching, because right now to be what is on pole in this field is going to be a very difficult challenge indeed. However, there is still time remaining, just under 2 minutes left on the clock. They will squeeze in one more lap before all is said and done, and after that, well, we will be seeing everyone make the way to the grid, but we're not too far away from seeing that for the start of race number 1. But who right now is perhaps out of position? Who's perhaps struggling a little bit in this qualifying session? Well, one of the big names who we are seeing a long way down the order is this man, Geoff Randall, who right now has fallen all the way to what is at 15th place in qualifying. This will not do for Randall, I can tell you that. He'll be looking at this right now thinking to himself, how exactly have I ended up here? But then again, when you look at the timings, if you exclude what is a bit of an anomaly in terms of your top 5, where they're separated by half a second, and you go from Daniel Tuga in 6th place, the gaps really between drivers are no more than a 10th. In fact, if you do it from Gordon van den Bergen, what you'll see is from van den Bergen to Wade, it is only 1.5 tenths for Kennedy sandwiched in the middle. Then Sonny, it's coming down to hundredths between drivers. So if Randall can find 2 or 3 tenths right now, he would leap himself comfortably back into that top 10. We will see, because 40 seconds left on the clock. This is going to be the last chance for so many of these drivers here, although some are halfway round the lap right now. I don't know if they're going to make it, but as all the drivers pole their way on towards what with the start finish straight off of the banking of Ari Lundin-Bocht, will charge and down. Matuk moves up to 9th on a 51.870. Kelly improves to 51.318. Titus de Jong goes up. Meanwhile, Marcus Bijveld takes the top of 50.777 there, ahead of Adam Miles by 3/4 of a tenth. More times piling in from all our drivers here, ladies and gentlemen. And well, has anybody managed to dethrone Bijveld? I don't think so. I think that's it for qualifying. I think Marcus Bijveld will still wait pole position right at the end, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, that's qualifying complete. Let's head to the grid then for our first of our 2 races here in the Netherlands. And so as they all make the way to the grid, this is how they'll line up for the round 9 sprint race here in the Skip Barber Community Trophy Season 5, as sponsored by Musical Entity Limited and Old Git Racing Team. It is Marcus Bijveld who has taken pole position, the privateer, with a brilliant pole lap ahead of Adam Miles by just shy of a tenth. Behind them, it will then be Tim Hendrickson on his debut starting 3rd. He was a further 2 tenths behind, but he was 2 tenths ahead of Steff Herrmann, the championship leader. Gordon van den Bergen will be starting in 5th place for Sickhead Racing ahead of the privateer of Brian Kelly. And then we have behind them starting 7th, Titus de Jong for Asian Turtle Racing, ahead of his teammate Remco Pleisier. Expect them to both go forward as quickly as they can. Then it'll be David Kennedy, who starts 9th for Whiskey at Windmill Bandits, ahead of Daniel Atuga, who completes that top 10. And outside the top 10, 11th place is Josephine Becker. Once again, the German driver just outside the top 10, but expected to fight away into the top 10. Ahead of Simon Wareham, who takes the season best qualifying performance. And then we do have Klaus Biedermann starting 13th, ahead of George Matuk, who's moving on up. Nathan Wade begins this one in 15th, and well, good to see Nathan on the grid after what was the challenges the last time out, albeit I wonder what exactly he's got as his sim racing setup at the moment, but he's made it onto the grid, and now he's got to get himself familiar with the equipment. Meanwhile, familiar with his equipment, but not familiar with starting 16th, it's Geoff Randall there for Old Git Racing Team, ahead of Frankie D and Kevin Budgeon. And then we do have completing your top 20, Peter Suapanki for Old Git Racing Team and his teammate Chris Wayne. Outside the top 20, it's then Christopher Garros Jr. ahead of Roddy van der Meeden, with David Elliott 23rd ahead of Neil Bamber. And then we do have Pedro Marion Caldera in 25th ahead of Frederick Neptune. On row 14, it's Tom Payne versus what will be Mark Beckhaus. And then we have none other than Nico Heinen and Dennis Johansson, both with no laps to their names and not taking part in qualifying at all. Well, it looks though there they may not be making it to the grid. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here come the lights. And so it's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, it's firing lights. And it's lights out, away we go for the round number 9 sprint race here at Circuit Zandvoort as Marcus Weifeld gets a good start, but Adam Miles tucks it behind and Tim Hendrickson does the same. But as they come down towards turn number 1, well, Weifeld's going to go high, Miles is going to go low, and the rest of the field will follow in the tow. As they all coming around for Tarzan-Bocht here, and well, Miles does try to squeeze ahead a little bit, but Weifeld now on the outer line will carry a bit more momentum, but now into turn number 2, you can see there Hendrickson already looking for a move here. He's going to go high around the outside, and Weifeld on that low line is going to lose a lot of momentum as they come out the corner, or is he? As the whole field now heads onwards, and well, everyone's safely through the opening few corners. It's a good start for all, albeit Tom Payne's had a bit of a miserable start. He's down in 28th place. He's fallen down there, losing a place, but battles towards the rear of the field. We can see there Neptune and Beckhaus side by side as they close up to Bamber, and well, just in front of them you've got Elliott and Marimon Caldera. That's onto the grass there for Kevin Budgeon, and well, in fact that was David Elliott taking a wider trip to the grass. Budgeon did a small one, but Elliott did a bigger one, and now from them we come back to the front of the field. And well, Marcus Weifeld has been pushed a bit further back down to 4th place as Adam Miles is now trying to get to grips with the front of this field. Head of Tim Hendrickson with Herman and Weifeld right behind. But switching back and forth between these drivers at the moment, everyone eagerly watching left into right. But for Gordon van den Bergen in particular, I think he's feeling as though there's a chance here to now keep moving forward as he battles with Weifeld. He's going to look around the outside of the man who was your pole sitter. But that pole position has definitely been for nothing right now as Weifeld has to go defensive versus the Sickhead Racing Phantom Machine. Miles as well, he's finding that Hendrickson's keeping under honest pressure as the field makes its way back towards us now, coming all the way from turn 12 in towards 13, and as they exit the corner, further back, we've got a bit of change of position. That's Roddy van der Meeden versus Frankie D and Kevin Budgeon, and well, D there in the very colourful black and green machine on the inside, and I believe he'll be streaming his onboard perspective there. Right now, the content creator not quite able to make the move initially, however, he will have the momentum here, and Budgeon's going to come through behind as van der Meeden goes high. So after one lap of racing, it is Tim Hendrickson who leads ahead of Adam Miles, followed by Steff Herrmann. They're going too wide, are 2nd and 3rd. In towards Tarzan-Bocht as Miles trying to set the pace back now, and meanwhile Gordon van den Bergen is up into 4th place. There's Weifeld in 5th, Brian Kelly in 6th, just watching and waiting in the wings. Head of Titus de Jong, followed by Daniel Atuga, and then we do have Remco Pleisier and Josephine Becker. They complete the top 10 with David Kennedy best first in 11th place and finds himself keeping Randall Matuk behind at the moment as he looks for a move on what will be Becker, but coming over the crest and down into a long sweeping run here up towards turn number 7. Well, all the fighting now is starting to build a little bit between these drivers, and I wonder if we're going to start to see a bit of a split in the field, as that's a very wide run there for Steff Herrmann at turn number 7. That's going to be van den Bergen right in amongst him. However, he's not going to be able to quite make that move happen. Further back, well, the Old Git Racing Team pair of Wayne and Suapanki, they both struggled in qualifying, as did Randall, who started a bit further up the road to them, but Randall's already gained 5 places, he's up into 11th. Wayne, meanwhile, well, he's only gained 1. Suapanki's gained 2, he's up into 17th by comparison, but Wayne right now enjoying a bit of a battle and a scramble here with Roddy van der Meeden. Van der Meeden on the inside, they all come through the left-hander at turn number 10, and these drivers right now, 2 by 2 by 2 they go. nobody backing down at the moment at least, and we are seeing a constant exchange of places everywhere you look. As Remco Pleisier, well, he started in 7th place. Oh, goodness me, that's a bit of a mistake there from David Kennedy, and Pleisier goes wide, and George Mattock almost hits the rear of Kennedy. I think he did give him a brief tap, but nothing too significant there. Doesn't take the front wing off the car, and George Mattock right now, well, he's building up some pace as they make the way out of turn 13 and in towards 14. Boom, to that banking they go. It'll be flat out here as they all immediately go to the low line. They all go from 2x2 in towards what is single file. They all know the game plan here, which is to find the draft, and we're heading on down. It's going to be a fan out here as Mattock goes to the pit wall. Meanwhile, it's going to be Pleisier in the middle of the road. They're going to be 4 wide here in towards turn number 1, and Mattock comes across. It's contact with Pleisier. David Wade dives up the inside, and Pleisier goes round. Pleisier is going spinning around. Wade goes around as well, and both drives there. In fact, was that Wade going around? No, it was not Wade. It was a different car entirely. That was David Kennedy going around. I do apologise. And Kennedy being collected there with what was the wayward Remco Pleisier, and well, suddenly 4 wide into turn 1 does not seem to be the way it's done. We'll get a replay of that very shortly, ladies and gents, because definitely that was a moment that caused many a hair to stand on ahead. But as all of our drivers come through, right now it's not over yet when it comes to 3 wide. So this is going to be Gareth Jr. being robbed left and right by what is Maron Caldera and Budgen and Maiden. Oh, Roddy van der Maiden in particular making the move around the outside. Kevin Budgen going the other side of him, and in the end, Budgen for the contact survived it. As meanwhile, there comes Maron Caldera now battling with Gareth Jr. They go 2 wide for turn number 7, and well, somehow they touch wheels and they don't end up in the weeds, either of them. But Gareth Jr. right now trying to come back at him as we ride aboard here with the Swede, the privateer, looking up the inside, big dive there, and well, Maron Caldera locking up by comparison. And it's getting a little bit personal between these drivers now as they make the way through. This has just been the opening 5 minutes of the race, and we've still got plenty more of it to come, I can tell you that. But right now, my good lord, has it been incredible racing so far. Well, powering the way onwards then, and as they make the way towards the next braking zone, what will we expect next? Well, your answer is as good as mine here. We've had some incredible moments thus far. And, well, I've noticed Pierre Serpanki's missing a nose cone slightly. But, meanwhile, coming through 11 and 12 for the Hans-Ernst chicane. That's going to be a run wide there. That's going to be the car of, I believe, Mark Beckhouse having some difficulty. And, in fact, as he makes his way into the next corner, Beckhouse falling backwards as Neil Bamber tries to move forward by comparison. But out onto the glass goes none other than Klaus Biedermann. Well, not Klaus Biedermann. That was Frederick Neptun. And Klaus Biedermann trying to play catch-up here as he makes his way off through. As the driver does so, well, making the way through these corners right now. I think Biedermann making his way down that start-finish straight, and in fact into the pit lane. Something has not gone right with the car. I think he might have been involved in some of the madness at turn 1. But back to the leaders then, and Tim Hendrickson right now defending versus Miles, and Hendrickson trying to hold on as Van den Bergen looking left, looking right, and as they come over that crest, well, this is a long line of cars. It is the top 8 altogether here, and your leader right now, well, he's doing a very good job of keeping everyone behind him so far, but for how long can Hendrickson do this? That's the problem he's got to face, because of the fact that everyone here is showing that they're equal of his pace, and based on qualifying, you would imagine that it's none other than the man who starts on pole, Marcus Beifeld, who's down in 6th in this group. He should be the one who leads it. However, qualifying pace and racecraft, they are 2 very different things here in the Skip Barber Community Trophy. And right now for Tim Hendrickson, he's just trying to hold on. He's still got over half the race to go, and this is just race 1 of 2 here today. Indeed, by the time he gets to the end of this one, he won't want to exhaust himself too much. Because he's got a 30-minute feature coming up after this, and he wants to try and go for gold in that one as well. But here comes Miles looking up the inside then into turn 11. Does he fully commit to it? No. What he does, he puts himself there about 75% of the way and says to the man, okay, what are you going to do? And Hendrickson does not wilt under the mental pressure there. He just holds his ground. So good work on him to do so. But all these drivers now coming towards turn 13, and well, the field stays as it was. It does so well, goodness me, ladies and gents, but these fights are definitely building between all these drivers. We've got more to come in this, that's a certainty. But right now, we would go back in time and take a look back at some of the big moments of the racing, but we're going to stay transfixed to what's going on here because of the incredible battles. But here comes Miles on the left-hand side of your picture. Van den Bergen tries to tuck in behind him as well. Hendrickson's going to have to fight with the second racing car, is he not? No, he stays with Miles instead. And as meanwhile behind, well, that's going to be a bit of a difficult run there for Hendrickson, so it will be Van den Bergen battles with him as Brian Kelly in the end. It tucks in behind Herrmann. But the fight for second place is now building. Hendrickson on that low line goes all in on the brakes. He wants to go high. He doesn't want to duck low. And meanwhile, Van den Bergen does the opposite there. And therefore swapping the places around. These drivers right now, well, one looking one way, one looking the other way. And both of them there not giving themselves any breather in this race. That is absolutely on the limit racing. They're going to keep doing it time and time again all the way to the finish here. And well, right now they'll probably lose track of how many laps they've got left and how much time's left at this rate, but I'm sure they'll be keeping an eye on it there. These drivers are all absolutely experienced, and they'll be mindful of the fact this is just really the build up to the final lap whenever it does come. Coming in towards what will be at the right into left here, turns 9 and 10 right now. Hendrickson, he's proven that whilst he may not be the leader, he can make sure he doesn't lose any more places to anybody else. As Roddy van der Meijden getting very close to the rear there of Kevin Budgen. And Budgen right now holding on to 14th place for a 3-second gap to Simon Wareham in the all-white English machine. Just in front of him there in none other than 13th place. We just saw him briefly go through the camera shot. And Budgen right now holding on with Wayne also there looking for an opportunity either versus the Dutchman or Turty versus the Brit. Gets into that next braking zone. It will take some time there. Will we see a move from Van der Meijden? The answer is no. Frankie Deemer a bit further back. He looks like the inside of David Elliott. Goes all in versus the Irishman. And, well, comes a bit too hot. Slides loose. And Elliott in the end, I thought he was going to be collected, so decided to go to the gravel to take a base of action. But in the end, the car that he was trying to avoid followed him to the gravel and ended up being a bit of a roadblock there. And well, you can understand the enthusiasm and the intent from D, but unfortunately just a bit too much speed there. But 10 out of 10 for trying, no doubt about it. And sometimes you've got to go in and just see where the limits are. But meanwhile, David Elliott here with all that, he's now got to fight with Remco Plessis and Peter Suapanki. And Suapanki is definitely missing the front end of what is his nose cone. So therefore, he's lost it in some sort of contact at some point, and that may explain why he's really struggling in this race. As we can see here, Remco Plessis off that big spin at turn number 1 about 4 laps ago. Right now he fights with David Elliott, who's going to go high and around the outside, and Plessis in the end will just put it down on the low line, and it's going to help him defend into 2. And right now looking all the way around the outside still, and in the end does tuck back in. But with all this, ladies and gentlemen, we do need to take a bit of a rewind back to how the race started, and in particular what first happened to Tom Payne. So this was on lap number 1, and Payne was already towards the back of the field, but as he made his way into turn number 2, he had a bit of an off track here, carried way too much speed on that outside line with cold tyres, found his way to the gravel and went very much sideways. And then had this for Kevin Budgen. And this was coming out of turn number 3, and I suspect here he's carried a lot of speed and a bit too much of it. He made his way out, got the throttle down, and well, good as speed. Decided to take to the grass there, and I think got an overspeed on the car in front and didn't realise how quick he'd close on it. So Budgen had to take very quick reactions there in order to avoid that. We then had this on lap number 2 for Tom Payne. His woes only increased after what was the opening lap slide. Well, this was down into the Hans-Ernst chicane, and as he made his way under braking, the rear of the car skidded loose, and he couldn't quite get it corrected and had to just stop it before it made to the barrier. But from him, we then come to what happened on the start of lap number 3. This was the 4 wide that many will now remember. Remco Plessis there found himself right in the midst of it all. Mattock came across, and in the end, there wasn't contact to Plessis' car until Sonny Nathan Wade came in, and there was the contact with none other than David Kennedy from Plessis. And well, we take a look at this from the onboard of Remco Plessis on the roll bar, and well, he'll start off absolutely fine. And then suddenly, there's Mattock who comes across and literally sipes off the nose, and then Nathan Wade just comes barreling in on the inside there from the perspective of Plessis. That's how he'll feel. And then there was the contact with David Kennedy, who was on the outside of him, and this was the onboard from David Kennedy's perspective. He got the overspeed, he was getting the side draft as well of the 71, and the Whiskey Windmill Bandit Brigade driver thought he'd got clear, and then suddenly that tap to the side just sent him to the pit lane, and very quickly it all came undone. But from that, we also had this for Frederick Neptune on lap number 3. Lap number 3 was definitely full of some drama. This was towards the end of it for the 666 driver, and I believe this was where he ended up going a bit wide, battling side by side with the 44, and in the end, not quite sure if there was a rub or not there, but he definitely made his way out wide, and when he rejoined, he'd lost multiple places. With that, ladies and gentlemen, it's back to your live racing we go. And as we do, well, there's still more fighting to come, no doubt about it. And at the front of the field, Tim Hendrickson has found his way back to the very front with 7.5 minutes left on the clock here. So this race keeps on getting us guessing as he makes his way on through. And we do say hello there to Section 12345, who gives us a thumbs up there. And again, we do apologise for those technical issues, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, unexpected, but we're back here bringing you all that racing action as it unfolds. And we also do say hello there to Josephine Becker, who's having a bit of a breather in qualifying. But Becker is back with us now and racing in this pack. overtaking. In fact, what has happened with all the fighting that's happened in this field, we said it was a top 8 fighting for the lead. Well, if you look to the back of it, there's Becker and Randall, so they have found their way onto it, so it's now top 10 fighting for the lead. Although this battle in front of them between Latuga and Brian Kelly actually may now start to split this field a little bit, as Latuga and Kelly, I think, are getting more interested in each other than they are interested in the leaders. But then again, they'll be hoping that Miles and Hendrickson fight each other, as Herrmann, meanwhile, looking around the outside. Here we go, 3 wide into Tarzanbox again, and as they make the way around, well, Marcus Byfeld, meanwhile, cuts up the inside of Herrmann, who he sees backing out, and says, OK, Steff, try this on for size. And he goes up the inside of him there, and in the end, that will be a change for position. So Byfeld will move back into 3rd. Herrmann tucks back in full place with Titus de Jong and Gordon van den Bergen on the back. But van den Bergen, they're going a bit slow on the low line. But then we have Brian Kelly, who's trying to make sure he clears the two, got Randall and Becker. And I think they've all agreed to stop fighting each other for a couple of seconds, just to make sure that one car in this lead group does not lose the other. And, well, you can see Kelly in particular now trying to hustle to close up to what is the top 6, because he'll be worried if he loses them, which he is at a risk of doing now, the 1.1 second gap to them, that suddenly it's going to be a fight for 6th, well, a fight for 7th between these drivers, and then 6th through to 1st will have the right to fight for the spots on the podium. And nobody wants that when you're in this group of 4. You want to be in that lead group as much as anybody else. But further back, we have had a bit of drama for George Mattock, who has dropped down to 13th place. We're going to get a replay of that shortly as to what's happened to him. But still, all of our competitors right now definitely putting on a fantastic show here. But the show still goes on, and we are not at the very end of this race yet. We have still got quite a bit of distance and a few laps to come. With the lap times around here being just shy of 2 minutes, well, you do the quick mathematics, we've got this one and another 3 in the tank. As Tim Hendrickson continues to fight with Miles and Byfeld, but is he trying to get them to fight each other instead? I think the answer is yes, but I don't think Miles and Byfeld want to play that game. They don't want to follow the script. Instead, what they want to do is just simply make sure that they're not losing out. But onto the banking they go, and as they do, well, the top 6 right now still together, 1.1 seconds ahead, a 7th through to 10th. But here we can see it's an early 3 wide now coming down the straight. And is that Steff Herrmann thinking about making it 4 wide here on the outside? No, he's covered off by none other than what is Byfeld. And Emil Hendrickson in the middle of the road. Miles goes low, going high as Byfeld here. There'll be 3 wide on exit, but Byfeld is slightly pushed out wide there. Current wide in the rear of the pitch. That's Brian Kelly, who's made a mistake. And meanwhile, Hendrickson and Miles go 2 wide into 2, 2 wide into 3. And Hendrickson again proves so obstinate. He will not be moved. He refuses to give in. And, well, as we now ride on board here, Marcus Byfeld, the 4th player in this group, well, he's probably looking ahead of him right now and thinking, OK, well, Herrmann's got ahead of me, and right now, Miles and Hendrickson are not giving a single inch here. Not that he'll be frustrated, of course, about what happened at turn number 1 there. It's all the natural part of the racing. However, the idea that Steff Herrmann's now got ahead, he'll realise the fact that if he's going to fight with those top 2, he's got to be a bit unconventional. There's a bit of contact there between Miles and Hendrickson. That's going to cost them both pace, and here comes Herrmann up the inside. Byfeld does the same as well. He invests well behind the number 24 driver, and Blyser on the outside there, and, well, and Titus de Jong, I should say, on the outside there for the Raging Turtle Racing. He can't quite find his way in as they switch back to the left-hander, and coming out of the quarters right now, well, suddenly we have a new leader to this race. Steff Herrmann is that first win of the season, only 4 minutes away for the number 24. We are still to see as they make the way into this braking zone for 11, and right now, Gordon van den Bergen gets all on the back of this. But with all this fighting, it has brought the top 10 back together once again. It only takes one battle, and then suddenly they all come absolutely battling into each other. There's no doubt about it right now. This is Skippy Racing at its finest, and you're catching it here in the Skip Barber Community Trophy because they come charging around. 2 more to go here at Circuit Zandvoort for round number 9 of the championship in the sprint. And Steff Herrmann goes to the pit wall immediately here, runs it all the way. But look at the slipstream Adam Miles is getting here. Surely he's going to be ahead, and well, as he makes his way down into the braking zone, the answer is going to be no, because Herrmann forces his way back in and says to Miles, no, I've seen how you do that versus Hendrickson, and I'm not going to give an inch like he did to you. But in towards turn number 2, and right now still 2 wide there, as Hendrickson, meanwhile, well, he's all over the back, but I think he has got a little bit of damage on that car from that contact. That might just slightly scupper his ability to carry as much momentum, but these drivers right now absolutely pushing each other to the limit. And it'd be rude of us not to think there's also some fighting going on further back, with Neil Barber recently passing Christopher Garris Jr. And right now Barber up into 18th place. He is still pushing onwards. His next target is this man, Frederick Neptun, we'd like to take for 17th. And remember, of course, we have 15th place as our our position that gets the grid inversion. So in terms of who's going to be on pole for the second race of the day, right now it's not Kevin Budgeon, the man at the head of this trio. It's the man in the middle of it, Mark Beckhouse, with Chris Wayne behind him. So Wayne would ideally like to take on the 44 if he can and make sure that he's the one who will be blessed with that pole position in the second and final race of the day. But we'll keep an eye on that in the distance, as meanwhile we come back to the lead group. And we do say hello there to Talkie T, who right now couldn't quite attend today, which is unfortunate, but still, we're very happy to have you tuning in, good sir. And well, as Ordrive's coming down, Herrmann is still controlling the narrative at the front of this group. There's a big slide there for Van den Bergen. The Circuit Racing Phantom machine right now, well, he's all shaken up. He goes a bit wide there, coming out of turn number 12. Goodness me, right now, he is really pushing it to the limit. These drivers all throwing everything they can at it, and well, all the way around the banking of turn number 14. Well, right now these drivers all keeping it nose to tail just for a little bit longer, but on to the final lap we go for this race, and Adam Miles versus Herrmann, they're the ones at the front battling. Miles does pull ahead for now, as we can see a fan out there as Byfeld goes wide. Hendrickson meanwhile right on the back there of the man in front of him, that being what is none other than Herrmann, who goes low, but Miles does take the lead this race, and Herrmann and Byfeld start to fight. Hendrickson runs out wide, almost losing the rear of the car, so the fourth place man stays where he is for now, as Gordon van den Bergen slides in behind them. But this top 10 still very close together, as meanwhile in what was the battle for 15th place, Mark Beckhouse has been involved in an incident of some description, ladies and gentlemen. And he's fallen a long way back. In fact, here is a quick replay of what's just happened to Mark Beckhouse. And this was battling with Kevin Budgeon down in towards the Hanshurst chicane. Made his one to the brakes. They went too wide in. Took a lot of curb contact between the two of them. And in the end, they both came apart there. And Chris Wayne, he went all in. Budgeon was able to get back together, but not Beckhouse. That explains what's happened to them. But Budgeon now is the 15th place man. And he may just be taking that pole position. Meanwhile, as we come back to the lead group, this is what will stay for the rest of the time now. Well, it's Miles, Herrmann, Byfeld, Hendrickson, Van den Bergen, De Jong. That's your top 6. Randall behind there. Brian Kelly fighting with Josephine Becker over the 9th place. This is going to push them out of contention for the top 8 now, perhaps, unless there's a bit of an altercation inside that top 8. But weird to see, as Titus de Jong has Geoff Randall, who started in 15th, making his way very quickly in all this. In fact, 16th is where he started. But look at that. Their fighting is going to cause them to fall back a little bit as the top 4 all stay nose to tail. Nobody wants to make a move now until the exit of turn 13. But as they all power the way onwards, well, now here comes the big corner. This is the crunch moment for Adam Miles. He's the lead car. What can he do here to spoil the momentum of everybody else? The answer is not much. He's going to have to go low and just hope he's got enough momentum all the way through the final quarter to make this work. But as the checker flag waves, will it be Steff Herrmann? Will it be Miles? I think Herrmann's got it. I think he might do it because Byfeld on the left, and in the end it is Steff Herrmann. Herrmann takes it for his first win of the season ahead of Adam Miles and Marcus Byfeld. The top 3 separated by no more than a 10th at the finish line. Tim Hendrickson finishes 4th ahead of Gordon van den Bergen, with Geoff Randall 6th. Titus de Jong in 7th ahead of Daniel Atuga, with Josephine Beck and Brian Kelly completing your top 10. Nathan Wade, he's come through to 11th ahead of George Mattott, with Simon Wareham, Chris Wayne, and then Kevin Budgeon completing your top 15. He's your pole man for race number 2 today. Frederick Nixon takes 16th ahead of Neil Bamber, with Remco Pleisier, Christopher Gerris Jr. and David Elliott completing that top 20. And then Mark Beckhouse will take 21st, just ahead of Frankie D, with Pedro Marimon Caldera in 23rd ahead of Klaus Biederman. And it'll be Tom Payne, Peter Surpanki, who complete your lead lap finishing order. Roddy van der Maiden, unfortunately, had to retire the car due to an issue 2 laps in the end. And the same for Dale Kennedy as well. After that turn 1 contact, it all ended up in a bit of tears for him. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, what a conclusion, no doubt about it. And well, let's take a look back at those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. So after an incredible, what was race number 1, and indeed absolutely brilliant racing between all the drivers, we got to see in the round 9 sprint race here and the Skip Barber Community Trophy Season 5 at Circuit Zandvoort. Steff Herrmann take his first win, but look at the gap. Not even a 10th separating the top 3, with Herrmann ahead of Adam Miles by half a 10th, and it was a further 200ths to Marcus Byfeld, who completed that top 3. Tim Hendrickson on his debut round for this season, taking 4th place there. The Dutchman couldn't quite make the magic happen to be able able to hold on for what was a podium or the win, but he definitely bared his fangs, and I think the number 28 driver is going to be one to watch in our second race of the day. Gordon van den Bergen finished in 5th in the end for Circuit Racing. He looked quick, however, he was just as much sideways as he was straight towards the end, and that was definitely the fact he was pushing so hard. Geoff Randall came all the way from 16th to 6th there for Old Git Racing team, so whatever went wrong in qualifying, it definitely didn't go wrong in the race. Had a Titus de Jong, who was 7th for Asian Turtle Racing, who just lost out versus his British rival, but was ahead of Daniel Tuga, who took 8th. Josephine Becker battled hard with Brian Kelly at the end and beating Kelly to the post there for 9th, with Kelly completing a top 10 ahead of Nathan Wade, who was best the rest in 11th. Really, the rest of the field starting with Nathan Wade. And then we saw George Mattock with a late instant costing the chance for a top 10 and instead having to settle for 12th, ahead of Simon Wareham, with Chris Wayne and Kevin Budgeon completing your top 15. And they will be flipped, and it will be Kevin Budgeon who lines up on the front row pole with Chris Wayne alongside. Frederick Neptune, Neil Bamber, Remco Pleisser, Christopher Garris Jr. and David Elliott completed your top 20. And outside the top 20, it was Mark Beckhouse ahead of Frankie D, with Pedro Morimon Cloudera, Klaus Biedermann, Tom Payne and Peter Suapanki completing your lead lap finishers. And then we did see, of course, what was none other than Rodi van der Meijden, 2 laps down at the finish, with also their 9 laps down, a non-finisher, David Kennedy. And sadly, we did see 2 non-starters in the form of Nico Heinen and also Dennis Johansson, with the Dane, sadly, one of our quick stars. And indeed, he was very impressive at Brands Hatch in the season opener, not quite able to make it to the grid. But hopefully, we may see him in race number 2. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, if you haven't got an opportunity now to go get yourself a liquid refreshment, you won't have an opportunity when we do go racing again, ladies and gentlemen. So I can tell you one thing. Round number 9 absolutely delivered here at the CM.com Circuit Zandvoort, and we are only moments away from making our way to the grid once again for our second and final race of the day. And in fact, the racing has been so intense, it's been so incredulous, it's brought the broadcast to halt already in qualifying, but somehow the hamsters are still staying alive right now. They are powering this broadcast along, and I can tell you one thing, when we do get set for our second race of the day, we can expect even more cinema between all the drivers, because it has been absolutely cinematic thus far. And well, Titus de Jong and Adam Miles, they're staying out there right now. They've decided they're not going to sit in the pit lane and take a breather, because what they want to do is just keep pumping in the laps and keep the adrenaline flowing. I think there's something to be said about that right now. But up next, of course, is the 30-minute feature race, round number 10. We do have that all-important strategic pit stop, and that's always the big question mark on the race. When do you pit? Do you pit early? Do you pit halfway through? Or do you pit towards the end? Knowing that certain circuits, having a clear track in front of you can be highly beneficial. Geoff Randall demonstrated that, of course, with his infamous drive after pitting on lap number 5 in the opening 10 minutes at Alton Park to leap his way all the way through to the podium. However, conversely, we've also seen in other rounds, such as at Brands Hatch, that sometimes you want to pit as late as possible and work with the draft of the other cars in front of you and around you in order to gain race time. Here at Circuit Zandvoort, given the fact we saw the top 10 in the end all finish nose to tail, albeit side by side in many occasions, you would imagine that staying in the draft is going to be critical, and I would wonder whether perhaps we will see all the drivers try and stay out as long as possible unless they think somebody is being a little bit naughty in the pack around them. And what we mean by that is essentially there's a driver who's fighting harder than they should be, according to what other drivers think. Now, there's no rules or regulations that say you cannot fight in the Skip Barber Community Trophy, but the idea is when you battle, you want to do what is essentially back and forth fighting, which we saw Adam Miles give a demonstration of. We saw several drivers give a demonstration of in race number 1, with all the fighting really started to get aggressive and what we call for position battling on the final lap or the last couple of laps. But there's a driver in that pack, let's say for example, I hate to pick on him, but we use him as he is a good example. Imagine if you do get quite the firm battling of what was Hendrickson again in this one, all the way from the start from one of our leading drivers. That might be a driver that drivers further down recognise as that one's going to hold everybody else up. I need to come into the pits and come in early to undercut them. That's how Randall played his race at Alton Park, and that's why it worked. But who will play it right, ladies and gentlemen, in the strategy stakes of race number 2? It is time to find out as we head to the grid for round number 10 of Season 5. And so as our drivers make the way back onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for the second and final race of the day. And it's Kevin Budgeon who takes the top 15 reverse grid pole position and will be joined on the front row by none other than Chris Wayne. On row number 2, we'll have the pair in there of Simon Wareham and George Mattup, with Nathan Wade and Brian Kelly on row 3. Row 4, it's going to be Josephine Becker and Daniel Tuga, with your top 10 completed by Titus de Jong and Geoff Randall. Outside the top 10, starting 11th, is Gordon van den Bergen ahead of Tim Hendrickson, with then row number 7 being occupied by Marcus Byford and Adam Miles, and now a one-time winner for this season and still maintaining his record of podiums, it is none other than Steff Herrmann, who starts 15th. Frederick Neptune starts 16th, just ahead of Neil Bamber and Remco Palacia, with then Christoph Garris Jr. and none other than David Elliott completing your top 20. Outside that top 20, it's Mark Beckhouse ahead of Frankie D, with then Pedro Maron Caldera 23rd ahead of Klaus Biedermann, Tom Payne and Peter Surpanky behind. But, ladies and gentlemen, we need to get down to the front of the field because the lights are on for the second time today, and with firing lights, it's lights out and away we go as quick as that. They didn't wait to go out at all, and as they roar the way away, well, all drivers right now will need to try and pick their place in the pack early on. But Wayne and Budgeon, well, it's Chris Wayne who's had the better start, and he takes the lead of the race. Wayne towards turn of 1, Simon Wareham going nice and low, George Mattup looking around the outside. And I think right now this is more convenience to position rather than early fighting. But then again, and you see Nathan Wade, he's coming alive early on, goes up the inside of Mattock straight away. But that's a bit wide there for Simon Wareham. They all go low. That's going to cost them all a lot of momentum as they make the way through turn 3. Oh, taps her in Nathan Wade from Becker. And that causes a chain reaction. And suddenly, there's multiple cars going around. Geoff Randall's been collecting that as well. Oh, no, it's getting worse and worse. It's a domino effect here. Several cars being caught up. Oh, my good Lord, up into the air there. That's Hendrickson's car going over what was the sideways car of, I believe, what was Remco Palacia. We're going to need quite a big replay or set of replays to discern all that one, ladies and gentlemen, but that is not the way we wanted the race to start, and we haven't had an incident like that for a long time in the series, but they happen every so often, and when they do, well, with the field so close together for that narrow sequence of turns 3 into 4, it's been quite catastrophic. But what it does do, of course, is it opens up the rest of the field here, as we do see none other than Chris Wayne, Kevin Budgeon and Brian Kelly. Well, they've got now a 2-second gap to Gordon van den Bergen, who's still fighting with Simon Wareham. And this is the point straight away with the fighting that's going on early. It's actually splitting the field very quickly. There's not as cool a set of tempers here compared to the sprint race. And, well, could we see the lead battle already be down to 3 drivers as Gordon van den Bergen scythes his way around the outside of Simon Wareham? I think that's the message being sent by the Sickhead Racing driver, which is that he's here to make up this place as quickly as possible. But in towards that braking zone they come then for turn number 13 as they chuck the cars into it. And right now for Simon Wareham, I think he'll be trying to stay with Van den Bergen and not fighting him anymore. But he goes a bit high. Byfeld will go on the low line here and surely take the place away as they all come on through. Up towards what we turn number 1 they go. But as they do, it has been a dramatic open lap, and Chris Wayne is your leader after 1 lap, ahead of Kevin Budgeon, who battles his way out the inside of Brian Kelly, who falls to 3rd. Gordon van den Bergen holds the rest of the field in 4th, ahead of Marcus Byfeld, with Simon Wareham in 6th. On the outside there at Tarzanbocht, and we do have Nathan Wade, Josephine Becker, Adam Miles and Steff Herrmann completing your top 10, with Frederick Neptune 1.1 seconds back in 11th place, ahead of Neil Bamber, with Christopher Garris Jr., Klaus Biedermann and Roddy van der Meijden completing the top 15. But as we do say hello there to Neil Gardner in the YouTube chat, who is Talkie T, unfortunately not quite able to make the racing tonight due to what is work commitments, although he is on the other side of the world, I do believe. But still, it's great to have you here, Neil, and I hope you're doing well. And well, George Mattup there jumps into the chat and says, it's been a short race for me, and we do feel for you, George. Indeed, we feel for everybody involved in that huge incident. And indeed, it was looking quite good for yourself, and well, the pace didn't quite, in the end, match up to what was the madness of the start of that race. And well, I do feel for you, sir, but you definitely look feisty out there, and we hope for plenty more to try in a week's time. But as all the drivers right now seem to settle themselves down in a good fashion or so, we need to take a look back at what exactly happened there coming the exit turn 3 into 4. And in fact, to do so, we take a look back to the race start, and we are going to look at it from the perspective of one of our drivers. And in fact, we're going to look at it from the man who started in none other. And then what was at the time 12th place? This was the onboard from the roll part of Tim Hendrickson's car. So away he went, and there's the field made the way towards turn 1. A pretty classic start there for Hendrickson. Didn't look to be in any difficulty whatsoever. But into turn 1, well, it's going to be the natural concertina here between everybody. And as we did see in front of him there, what was the combination of Randall and Van den Bergen side by side. No real drama thus far. Hendrickson quite safe here in this position. But this is where things are going to get interesting. Several drivers got washed out on the low line here. And I think this is what triggers off the events. Becker, you can see, goes high, comes down, and Wade, I think, was tapped on the rear. And then suddenly Hendrickson ends up in the mess and was stuck to the barrier here. The car just sliding along. And then suddenly ends up mounting the number 91 there. Well, that was all over the top of another car. That was Daniel Tuga. And Hendrickson, through all of that, well, I can definitely tell you one thing. The car is not surviving that. That's coming into the pit lane. But what exactly happened then from perhaps the perspective of Josephine Becker? Let's see if we can get an alternative angle. This is Becker coming out the corner. So, taps the rear of Wade's car. That's what sent Wade round. Becker in the end slid into Mattock. And then there was the rest behind that got caught up in it. That explains the story. So, it all started with 3 cars all getting caught on each other. And then suddenly the rest of the field made their way into the scene. And they're the ones who came off even worse. This was Titus de Jong, who was one of the big recipients of damage. And in the end, well, he tapped the 91 on the rear, a Tuga in the end, but we did see what was Randall coming in, and I don't think there was a reaction time there from Geoff Randall. I don't think he would have been able to react to that, to be fair. I think he went into it. The concertina already happened, and de Jong somehow got away with what was heavy damage, but not enough to put him out of the race. This was the on-board from Randall's perspective as he made his way through turn number 3. And what you'll see here, Sonny de Jong slams on the brakes. Randall's got no chance. He's just started accelerating, thinking everyone's going. And Randall in the end pushed to the grass there on the outside of the circuit, although he'll be grateful for that. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we come back to your live racing. And, well, having left your racing for a bit of time, what's actually happened now as a result of that big collision is we've got quite a few different faces have all crept away. And in fact, the field has now come back together. Now, we have no safety cars in this series, nothing of the sort. Indeed, the racing carries on all the way to the very end, and our drivers have to observe local yellow flags should there be an incident. Although in that instance, I don't think anybody would have seen any yellow flags by the time the incident had finished, let alone when it started. As they all head onwards, well, Brian Kelly right now trying to break the toe a little bit from Wayne and Budgeon, but you can see Van den Bergen behind has a big lock up there from Budgeon into turn 1. He nurses it just about, with Van den Bergen and Byfeld are pushing each other onwards here in order to catch up to lead group. Now Byfeld's moved into 4th place, and Van den Bergen falls just that little bit back. I think this is now going to see that lead 3 suddenly become a lead top 10. It's going to be race 1 all over again, albeit some of the drivers who've made ground include Christopher Garris Jr., who's all the way up from 19th to 11th. And, well, that's the one thing that a big incident does deliver, of course, is the opportunity for some drivers who wouldn't normally finish as high to suddenly have a golden opportunity to pull off what will be a surprise result here. It's always lady luck, of course, and well, you see that in any motorsport, not just in Skippy racing. If there is a big incident, which they do happen, then suddenly drivers further down the order may just be able to creep on in. But as we do see Maramon Cladera battling hard with none other than Geoff Randall. Randall, despite what happened, in fact, has yet to pit. He's got a damaged rear wing, but he is still going. So credit where it's due to the Briton. He's not giving in and fighting Maramon Cladera. I would imagine that Randall at this point, he's going to see if he can get it all the way into the pits and then make the strategic call on whether there's going to be any repair work needed to the car, or whether he'll just simply try to nurse it as it is. But we can see Tom Payne in front of him, and well, also Peter Suapanki, and he'll be hoping that he can perhaps work with Suapanki to move a bit further forward, albeit Suapanki right now will need to let Tom Payne go. He's going to do that, or Randall's going to need to clear Payne. I think it's going to be the latter rather than the former, as right now Payne, oh, they both lose it under braking there, and Maramon Caldera just doesn't quite stop in time. And in the end, the Spaniard taps what is Randall's car and picks up some damage there. A bit of the nose cone fell off, and well, both drivers losing it at pace into the braking zone. I think both they're pushing each other to brake later and later, and both in the end falling the victim to the rear, letting go. But meanwhile, back to the front, and well, as Kelly now starts to open up a bit of a gap, it's all going to pot for what is now Chris Wayne and Kevin Budgeon, as they've certainly got everybody else right on their back. And there comes Marcus Byfeld looking for a way in, going into the inside into 2. Tucking behind here, and well, Kevin Budgeon at this point, he sees the right on the wall immediately, which is there's no point fighting this because these drivers are quicker than him over a single lap in clear air. He may as well work with them, but Van den Bergen will be hoping that Budgeon will back off. Budgeon doesn't quite back off for him coming out of turn 3 into 4, and they're going to be too wide all the way the run towards turn 7 at this rate. Budgeon there, too wide, rubbing the wheels, and well, that's at high speed. That's at the best part of 100 miles an hour there that they touched wheels, and somehow they're both keeping it straight. In other circumstances, you would see one car go one way and one the other, but not so this time, as Nathan Wade looks over the back of this. He's in the cinema view here as we ride on board with the number 29 driver, and I think he wants them to either stop fighting or give him a chance to make his way through, because he doesn't want to lose the leaders, who have now gone to a second ahead. I think Vandenbergen and Budgen are both respecting the fact right now all they're battling is costing them time. Although intriguingly, Vandenbergen really pushing these tight lines here. He has a lot of confidence as the German driver, and I think that's what he wants to do. He just wants to clear Budgen. I don't think he thinks that the number 18's got what it takes to stay with the lead group, and he's going to try and force this as Budgen goes defensive into the Hansa chicane, and well, lock up there from Vandenbergen, but he survives it, and in the end he will get the job done for full. So Vandenbergen is not wasting any time here in trying to make moves happen, as Nathan Wade now looks up the inside into box 13, but he's not going to be able to find it at the moment. Indeed, he backs off there and just runs his way onto the apex curb, and well, the suspension can take it. Steff Herrmann is behind by 1.5 tenths, and you've got Miles, Josephine, Beck and Simon Wareham all queuing up in this group. We're making the way down towards turn 1. Well, Wade looked for the move this time around the outside, whereas Adam Miles tucks into the pit lane, so he decides to get himself out of the pack as the fighting is building. I think there might be some advantage strategy to that. As around the outside, that's a surprise. Steff Herrmann there who goes to the move, and well, in the end on that outside line there'll be 2 wide now as they come out to Tarzan boxed, and Wade is going to fall in behind here. He doesn't fight it anymore and lets it go, although when Herrmann goes out wide there, he goes a little bit deep into the braking zone, and Herrmann now is going to try and rejoin that racing line as quickly as he can, as Wade in the end backs out the momentum to give Herrmann the opportunity to do so. I think right now you've got some smart heads coming up through this field, and they're realising the fact all the fighting's cost them so much time. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some more ducks to the pit lane shortly. Meanwhile, where's Adam Miles then since his pit stop? Here he is. He's come out in 18th place, and the good news for Miles is he's got a 5-second gap to the nearest car of Tom Payne, and he has got nobody close behind him. So the downside of this, of course, is the fact that with no slipstream, he's now got to do it all of his own. He has got to pray that the leaders are going to fight from this point onwards until they pit. However, we do know that in qualifying, based on the first half of the qualifying session, Adam Miles is the quickest driver here based on clear air pace. We saw that until we saw the monstrous laps put together by the likes of Hendrickson, who in the end did that lap with some slipstream, albeit that's the way to get on pole, but Miles definitely has the 1 lap pace here, which is a theme we have seen this season. Other than, of course, it was Brands Hatch, where it was Dennis Johansson who was the quickest of the drivers, but right now, where it is Adam Miles who is really putting it all together. But through they go, and as they do, and towards the end of this lap, we do see Brian Kelly open up a bit of a gap, but that's because I think just as much as his pace, Wayne, Byfeld, Vandenbergen, Budgen and Herrmann have all been fighting so aggressively with each other. We are 11 laps in. Well, not 11 laps in. We're 11 minutes in, I should say, as I mumble my time and laps together. And, well, down the start-finish straight this time. And it's Byfeld and Wayne still too wide. But I think this is more out of convenience rather than fighting each other. As Kelly right now just trying to extend that lead. And Kelly has been in these situations before where he's picked up wins. Of course, that absolutely brilliant victory on strategy at Alton Park is a sign he can be a winner. However, with the way it's gone here so far, I think he's not going to take anything for granted, and the one thing that will always be on his mind when Adam Miles right now has completed his pit stop, and is the man that everybody needs to find a way to beat. As Josephine Becker goes for her pit stop, so she makes her way on out. She's taking the Adam Miles approach here, albeit there was Miles going through the bottom of the camera briefly, so Becker is definitely behind Miles to the tune of about 6 to 7 seconds, but Becker's hoping that this is going to work out for the number 28, and this will bring the Studio Ghibli machine further up the field. Meanwhile, Tom Payne also leaves the pit lane as Geoff Randall heads on through. Randall was also pitted, so he's decided to get the job done and get the car repaired whilst he was there, and Payne will come up behind him as well. So the pit stops are coming in nice and early. Will we see any more responses? A bit further back, Tita de Jong and Remco Placia. They were both forced to pit, of course, for the open lap damage, so we suspect they will need to come into the pits again for a splash and dash. For the Raging Turtle racing drivers right now, well, they'll need to work together. Definitely they will have been raging at the time, but they need to have cool heads at this point onwards if they want to salvage anything out of this race. But back to the lead pack then. Here are Budgen and Herrmann, as Budgen goes defensive through the chicane, chopping his way on through the long left hand now, turn number 12, and Wade watches on from behind. And Nathan Wade right now, well, after what was the madness at turn 1 in the sprint race, where he went all in for it, and unfortunately didn't quite work out, and I suspect there might be a conversation in the stewards room afterwards with regards to that one. Wade right now watching on from this, and he definitely dodged a major bullet in that huge incident on the open lap in this race. I wouldn't be surprised if there is some damage to the side pod of that car, but nowhere near as much damage as what others received, as Wayne has come into the pits. Off camera, there he goes. Chris Wayne heads on down, so Wayne has decided enough's enough. He doesn't want to be part of the party anymore, and I think we're going to see a couple more do that in gradual time. Albeit, if you're Brian Kelly at this point, I think staying out might actually be worthwhile, just because Kelly seems to have shored up the gap at the very front of the field, whereas everybody else, by comparison, is still trying to find their run in the rhythm of this. Marcus Bierfeld is 9/10 ahead of Gordon van den Bergen, and then you've got a further second to this trio of Herrmann, Wade and Budgeon that are on your screen. So that's really the gaps at the moment between the top 6. They are spreading, unless you include full 46, which are all separated by a second in totality. That's the group right now that will probably be trying to fuel save for each other, but also thinking about, is it time to pit or is it not if we start battling? Garris Jr., he's running in 7th place. He's ahead of Frederick Neptune by 2/10. And as he comes down through the right-hander of turn number 8, right now, the 36 driver, well, his race has definitely had its ups and downs, but I think what he's imagining to himself at this point in time is that things have got to get better at this point onwards, because having started in 19th place, he's up into 7th on the road at least. He is battling effectively for what will be just outside the top 10 if our prediction on strategy is correct, with Frederick Neptune and Simon Wareham trying to be part of that group. But understandably, there could be some big points for these drivers available. We will see. As the halfway point of the race almost arrives. Meanwhile, Remco Pleister fighting with Tom Payne. And Tita de Jong has found his way past Payne already, but Pleister's having a bit of difficulty here as they come through the long right-hander of turn number 7. And in the end, Pleister does get it done with a lovely move around the outside of Payne there. Payne's still back with him, however, as we look back from the rear of the leading car, the 117. Well, it seems as though Pleister's been able to get this done or thereabouts. Something tells me that Payne definitely made sure he wasn't going to make it easy for him. Not that he should, but Pleister right now, well, he's lost his teammate and he'll be hoping he can catch up to de Jong before long, or that de Jong will perhaps back off the throttle just to give him a little bit of the draft. But how did Tita de Jong make the pass? Here was the replay. So this was the exit of the final corner from lap 7 onto lap number 8. They went, and de Jong in the end from the draft. This was about as straightforward as it went, as he made his way on down. And, well, in that draft he got ahead. Pleister behind. Well, he was a bit further back here, and as he made his way into turn 1, he had the overspeed. Payne had a little bit of a slide under braking, and, well, they went too wide into Tarzan box. And at this point, it was then all about the too wide for the remainder of the lap until the move was made. Or was it? No, it was Pleister tucked back in the end. But then this was how the move was made afterwards. And of course, this all started through turn 5 into 6. Too wide, they made the way through the left into right. And at this point, it was the outside for Pleister who had the confidence, he had the pace and the racing line. And Payne made sure to stick it to the inside, but Pleister just had that little bit more. Back to live racing we come, and as we do, we'll back out onto circuit is George Mattock after all the repair work, which is great to see. He may be the best part of the whole lap down at this point, but still being out there and in it to win it, that's the spirit we love to see here in the Skip Barber Community Trophy. And as he comes down towards turn number 13, well, right now the number 17 driver here will be hoping that he can find a bit of pace out here and look to chase down a personal best. You never know, to be fair, it's always worth chasing some time. But as we then look back up to the very front of the field, well, your top two have broken off into distance as Steff Herrmann carries on. And the game plan now for Herrmann is to bring van den Bergen and Wade along with him, and he doesn't want to end up fighting them for too much longer. I think that's going to be his concern. Wayne has pitted. Chris Wayne, we did see him come in, of course. He has come out behind Adam Miles. So Miles is still the highest placed driver who has pitted in this race, as we show you the pit stops on the time on the left-hand side of your screen. And Wade goes up the inside there of van den Bergen and tries to do the same for Steff Herrmann. So Wade in the purple machine, he goes all in, and in the end he goes all in for 2, but he only gets 1 place. But Wade there using the overspeed to his advantage, and Herrmann just making sure that Wade isn't allowed to be a disruptive force in this running group. Although Nathan Wade's intentions are quite clear, which is he wants to get right into the thick of this. After the disappointment of the feature race at Rudskogen, he's just hoping he can become a bit of a player in this one and pick up some rather valuable points. Roddy van der Meyden and Neil Barber, they're both into the pit lane at the moment. And well, as they leave the pit lane, where do they come out? And the answer is going to be van der Meyden comes back out in 16th place, and Neil Barber emerges in 17th there as he makes his way on out. And well, these drivers right now will find it a little bit lonely for the time being. However, they may just be able to pick up some places depending on what happens in front of them. But still, with 12 minutes to go, we are waiting to see whether it is this man who really is your race leader at the moment, or whether his undercut strategy is going to be overturned by the overcut of what is this man, of Brian Kelly, who, your race leader, he has opened up a 1.5 second gap over Marcus Bierfeld. You can see there in the rear of the picture. These two have been exchanging lap times if it's been going out of style, because the lap time delta between the two of them on the last lap was a 10th of that. In fact, I think we can show you the lap time deltas. There they are. And, well, they've been constantly oscillating back and forth, with Byfeld on lap number 8 losing 3/10 by comparison, but then gaining some time back in the earlier laps. And, well, it goes to show how much it ebbs and flows and how these two are driving absolutely on their limit. But with the smallest of mistakes, that's where it will cost them the time. But on to another lap they both go. Neither one there decides to peel into the pits this time, and in the group of three behind of Herrmann, Wade and Van den Bergen, none of them coming in, nor do we see anybody in the Gareth Jr. Neptune Budgen battle coming in. But as we do see Van den Bergen go low this time, trying to undercut what is Wade there, too wide on exit. And coming in towards turn number 2, I think Wade's just going to hold his line and Van den Bergen falls back. Gareth Jr. meanwhile, well, he's making a bit of a break from Neptune, who's just passed Kevin Budgen in towards turn number 1. And Kevin Budgen's race continues to go slightly backwards here. However, depending on his pit stop and where he emerges, he could be on course for a top 10. We will see. And Suapanki and Ramon Caldera, they're both into the pit lane from what was at the time, I do believe, running in 11th and 12th. And Suapanki's already back out onto the main road in 15th place now, just behind Roddy van der Meerden. And, well, I think Ramon Caldera is still being serviced in the pit lane. So, sliding his way on through, the man on camera, Kevin Budgen, he's still pushing as hard as he can as we ride on board the nose cone camera of the number 18. Oh, but I think there's going to be a bit of a hefty bill to our camera provider today, given the fact we've lost quite a few nose cone cameras from what I'm hearing. But as we do see the number 18 continue to follow Neptune. Well, pit stop can't be too far away now, given the fact we're coming into the final third of the race, as Neptune goes very deep and Budgen there looks on the inside. And, well, he couldn't push it too hard there for the risk of making contact. But into the draft he goes, and as they do, well, right now, Gareth Jr. in front will use that as a sign to just pull away that little bit more. Well, I think Neptune would like to stay with the sister machine, but the number 36 has got its own ideas. And, well, it's going to try and keep it together as they make their way towards the end of this lap. But from them, we then make way. Oh, goodness me, we've lost slightly a bit of our overlay there, and it does come back. Apologies for that. It seems to be a broadcast blighted with technical issues today. We have them all in one go, but still, we do get our overlay back. Steff Herrmann running in third at the moment. Well, he carries on even still, but he comes across the middle of the road there, and I think that's to try and send a signal as he goes to the inside versus Van den Bergen and Wade, which is, if you're going to fight for it, you can fight for it on my outside, thank you very much. And so they do. And Wade here goes to the switchback. Van den Bergen comes down and cuts off his nose. And right now, well, Herrmann has not got an enviable task here. This is a very, very tricky task that he's got to take on, which is to try and make sure that 2 drivers behind him do not stop him from keeping this momentum. But every little scrap they do, this is costing them time, and I wouldn't be surprised. Well, Miles is definitely going to get ahead of them at this rate. But what about the drivers behind Miles? Wayne and Becker in particular. Is this fighting going to bring Wayne back out ahead, and will Becker be in amongst them come the final few laps? Well, that we can't be too far away from seeing now, as we've just had a big glut of pit stops from Budgen, also Wareham, also Gareth Jr., with Kevin Budgen re-emerging in 12th place. There he is, as he comes in towards turns 2, 3 and 4. And, well, a bit further back, Simon Wareham battling side by side with Neil Barber. Well, Bamber's been able to pick up that place there in the Marlboro machine, does a great job in the 45. And hops ahead of Simon Wareham. And now Wareham's going to try and come back at him here, coming over the rises. Down they come in towards what will be the S's sequence, and Bamber has got to a Panky and Randall behind him. Geoff Randall, of course, well, he's still in this to win it in terms of battling for some key points for the Old Git Racing team alongside his teammate. But Randall on the inside there, Panky on the outside, and, well, between the two teammates right now is literally millimetres of air. And, well, as we see Wareham and Bamber fight, it's 2 by 2 here. It looks like they're on a formation lap, but I promise you they're not. They're all racing, and Simon Wareham's just picked up a black flag for track limits. That's instant points, and sadly for Wareham, that's going to be a drive-through penalty that's got to be served in the next 3 laps. And that's going to be absolutely gutting to this battle, because it's been building up to a crescendo. And Wareham right now being passed there by Randall. He's going to have Suapanki trying to do the same around the outside. And, well, that battle in the end is going to see Wareham just drop away. And at this point, I suspect he's not going to fight it anymore, for the reason, the fact he's only going to lose more time the more he fights. But one man stays out. Marcus Byfeld, he does not come in, and as he stays out, well, there's Steff Herrmann being serviced. Brian Kelly makes his way on down pit lane, and where is Adam Miles? There is Miles. I don't think Miles has jumped ahead of Kelly. Keep your eyes on the top right of your screen. There is Brian Kelly. Adam Miles has not made the leap. He's come close, but not close enough for Adam Miles. So Brian Kelly is now the strategic leader of this race, and if so, Marcus Byfeld was 1.5 seconds back. Will you do the quick mathematics? And what you'll notice is the gap is essentially Kelly. Only 1.7 seconds between Kelly and Miles. Could Marcus Byfield come out right in front of Adam Miles here? Do we have a fight for what is second place in the hands? Perhaps even for a lead right at the end. And strategy right now is not going to separate them. Credit where it's due to Miles. He has made this work to a degree by running in clear air, by moving into third and leaping ahead of the Vandenberg and Herrmann Wade battle. And you can see that's now fighting for fourth effectively as Nathan Wade comes in behind. And Chris Wayne, well, despite pitting early, he's come all the way back out in 7th place. He's had a very long pit stop, has Chris Wayne. Much longer than anybody else in that pit lane group. And in fact, to the tune of about 2 seconds. That's cost him a lot of time. And Becker's caught up to him. So is Garros Jr. So what a reversal of fortunes here for the 69 driver. It's not nice as he makes one around because he has lost a lot of time in the pit stops. And well, as Garros Jr. rides on the back of the pair in front of him, I think right now the number 36 driver will be looking for his best result of the season at this rate. But as they make the way towards the end of this lap, one man is at the end of it and he's coming into the pit lane already. Here's Marcus Byfield. So here's the moment of truth. Has he leapt ahead of Miles, or is he going to fall right into the clutches of him or behind him? Here we go, because as we look to the blimp camera this time, here comes Brian Kelly underneath the blimp as he makes his way through turn number 14, flat out all the way. Byfield has just finished being serviced. He's done the most fuel saving of everybody. He's got the shortest stop, only 8.35 seconds. Kelly makes his way onwards. Byfield making his way towards the end of the pit lane. We look to the forward camera and there's Byfield, there's Kelly, there's Miles. I think Kelly's going to get ahead of Byfield just. Miles may not, however. And in fact, no, it's a battle for the lead. As they leave the pit lane exit, we can see that Marcus Byfield in the end is come out in second place, but it's only half a second behind Brian Kelly. So Byfield's done the most fuel saving of everybody, and it's worked out with Adam Miles 1 second behind her right now. If you're Adam Miles, you've got to go on this lap. You've got to get as close as possible to Byfield and make sure you do not lose the slipstream in the top two, because this will lead to a three-way battle on the final 2 laps after this one, and it will be anybody's to take out this group. They've cleared the rest of the pack with a fight for fourth there. Got Vandenberg going sliding loose there into turn number 6, and Wade keeps it together. My goodness, a lesser driver would not have been able to catch that. How on earth he managed to stop that from going completely loose? Well, that's only something that Gordon Vandenberg knows. Well, I'll tell you one thing right now, whether he's racing on tarmac or taking a rallycross approach in a skippy, he can definitely make one go sideways and keep it under control. But he's got this fight for fourth on his hands all the way to the end of time now, as he makes his way out of turn 9 in towards 10. And the sickhead racing driver here in the Phantom machine, well, I can tell you one thing, he'll be wanting a lot of water. He won't be wanting Fanta after this one, albeit he'll have the wind in his lungs, and as they make the way downwards, he's got the wind in his sails right now to try and take on one of his best performances of the season. A little bit of jink of the car there. I think he was wondering whether he needed to go defensive versus Herrmann. And the answer in the end is no, he doesn't. Steff Herrmann just waits behind. And, well, Herrmann's going to try and continue his run of top 5 finishes this season. It's unbroken since the season opener, unless Nathan Wade can get ahead of him and force him to finish 6th. Well, we'll see to that. Meanwhile, back to your leaders then. 2 laps remain as they come to the end of lap number 14. And it is Kelly and Byfield. They are separated by nothing as they make the way across that timing line, with Adam Miles 9 tenths behind and closing little by little in the double draft. But down it's turn 1, and you can see there Byfield not looking for a move. He wants to play the game of work with Kelly to try and make sure that Miles doesn't get close enough. New fastest lap of the race. It's a 50.419 for Adam Miles, the fastest lap by a sizable margin of what has been a whole 1.5 tenths compared to the next best, which was previously set by none other than Nathan Wade. Oh, hold up a second. What on earth's happened there? That is Steff Herrmann going to the grass, and we come back to the Wade, Vandenberg and Herrmann battle. We're going to need to get a replay of that, but something's gone wrong there, and Vandenberg has gone very low coming out to turn number 3. I wonder where he's picked up some damage there, or where he feels at fault for some contact, and well, immediately we can get the quick replay to explain. And this was 3 wide into turn number 1 between them all. Herrmann in the middle, Vandenberg low, Wade high. And as they made their way out the corner, where they were going to pinch into 2, Vandenberg comes across there and crowds alongside Nathan Wade. One Steff Herrmann, and in the end, that's why Vandenberg went low to give the place back. I think he thought Herrmann would back out of that, and he didn't. And they went 3 wide still, and somehow they did not all get collected together on that one. Well done to them all, but my goodness, that could have been a nightmare instant. Thankfully, it was not. But back on your live screens, well, we come back to the top 3 here, and hopefully we don't see similar between these 3, albeit it has been a very dramatic and cinematic pair of races here today, ladies and gentlemen. But we'd like to end on a positive, though, with what is a very close ending, no doubt about that. I'm sure we'll agree. But as we do see our top 3 getting ready to go on to the final tour of the circuit, well, Kelly, Byfield and Miles, they're all together within half a second of each other in totality. And then they do have George Mattock's car 3 seconds up the road. Will they catch him on the final lap? Could Mattock play to the be the key to the success of these three drivers. Kelly, of course, looking to chase his second win of the season. For Marcus Byfeld, meanwhile, well, it's yet to be a win. Adam Miles looking to add to his winning books. And meanwhile, as they come down, it's 3 wide then as the white flag waves. We're on to our final lap. And in the middle is Byfeld. Kelly is on the inside. Adam Miles goes around the outside. 3 wide through tiles and box. They all make it. And they're still 3 wide as they head in towards turn number 2. But something's got to give here. Kelly falls back a little bit. I don't think he's going to force it. Yes, he goes for it. Kelly does. A small tap of Byfeld's car. He comes loose, but somehow he keeps it together. My goodness, and Kelly's back into lead. Miles backed off. They're wondering what's going to happen. And Marcus Byfeld's now over the back of this. Well, as they make the way up towards turn number 7, Brian Kelly may have just pulled off the ultimate move. He risked it all, and the risk was worth it. But as they come up the hill, Marcus Byfeld now looking around the outside of Adam Miles. Does he duck to the inside into turn 7? The answer is no. I think Byfeld feels as though he's conflicted here. Does he fight for second, or does he let Miles chase down first place? Well, here's your answer. It's a poor run from Miles coming out of turn 7, but Byfeld backs off in towards turn 8. He doesn't want to lose the leader right now. He's putting his faith in the Briton, but as the Swede heads into the braking zone for turn number 9, I don't think Miles has got enough here to come back, but we will see. Can he find a way to shake up Bobby Kelly as Mattup pulls aside immediately, sees them all coming. He wants no role to play in this lead battle to the very end, and we completely appreciate that from him with 30 seconds left on the clock. And now down towards what will be the Hansdon chicane they come, and we'll line astern these three drivers are. They are all pushing each other on here, and nobody right now wants to make the smallest of mistakes that could completely scupper this, but we will see as they hop and skip the way between the apex curves. Kelly's still ahead just by a sliver here as they get ready for turn 13, but this is the worst possible place to be as the leader in towards the penultimate corner takes some grass with him there, cuts the corner nice and early. That's going to carry a bit more momentum. Kelly hoping that's going to be enough here as he comes on the bank into turn number 14. He'll keep it as low as humanly possible to make sure Miles and Byfeld got the long way round. Was the checker flag waves. It's 3 wide as they make the way towards the timeline, but who's going to win it? I think it's Miles, and no, it's not. It's Marcus Byfeld. According to the timing tower, Marcus Byfeld has just stolen this away ahead of Adam Miles, and Brian Kelly completes your top 3. Nathan Wade will finish in 4th place in the end. Behind him will be Gordon van den Bergen and Steff Herrmann, and then it will be Christopher Garris Jr. who takes 7th place ahead of Josephine Becker with Chris Wayne 9th. And then it'll be Frederick Neptune who takes the top 10 there. Well done to him. Head of Kevin Budgeon, who's best the rest in 11th. Head of Klaus Biedermann by only 900ths at the finish. And then we Geoff Randall 13th. Peter Suapanki 14th ahead of Neil Barber. And then we will have it in 16th place shortly. What'll be? Well, that's the struggling car there, Roddy van der Meijden. I think he's not going to make it. I think he's run out of fuel. He is. He's crawling to line. So Tom Payne in the end will be rewarded for his perseverance for 16th place ahead of Simon Wareham and Roddy van der Meijden. Will he take home 18th? The answer is no. Marimon Cloudera comes across the line and gives him a bit of a nudge side on to push him along the line. And, well, van der Meijden takes 19th whilst running out of fuel. Head of Remco Pleisser, who rounds off your top 20 and your lead lap finishers with George Mattock, Frankie D, and none other than David Elliott, all finishing a lap down, and that will complete an order of 23 finishers in this race, ladies and gentlemen. But my good Lord, what an end to this race. And with that, well, there's only one thing we can do, and that is take a look to the race results, subject to any steward's inquiries. And as we can see, with race number 1's conclusion was full of drama, will race number 2 hand it from the off here for round number 10 of the Skip Barber Community Trophy Season 5, as brought to you on iRacing from Circuit Zandvoort. But Marcus Byfeld, there it is, by 1,000th at the laser timing line. He took victory. That is the smallest margin we have ever seen in the Skip Barber Community Trophy in all 5 seasons so far, ladies and gentlemen. That is incredible. But Marcus Byfeld taking that and with it now giving himself a 3rd win of the season ahead of Adam Miles, who will be absolutely fuming to think he's missed out by the tiniest of margins after all that hard work. And Brian Kelly, well, being the leader coming out those last 2 corners, it was always going to be a tough ask to be the winner of the race. But for the 3-2-1 driver, he'll be very happy to think that he's back on the podium as of this round. Nathan Wade took 4th in the end, the Briton just ahead of Gordon van den Bergen. And the Circuit Racing driver relegating Steff Herrmann to 6th, and with it, Herrmann taking his first non-top 5 of the season after a win in race number 1. Christopher Garris Jr., meanwhile, having a very strong showing there for 7th place, the Swede ahead of Josephine Becker, who in the end finished 600ths behind. And it was Chris Wayne in 9th place for the Old Git Racing team ahead of Frederick Neptune, who completed your top 10. Well done to the 666 driver on a strong showing ahead of Kevin Budgeon, who enjoyed plenty of battling, but unfortunately didn't quite have the pace to back it up, and that's why he finished just outside the top 10, but he was ahead of Klaus Biedermann at the finish by 10th, and it was a further half a second to Geoff Randall for the old Git Racing team, who, with his teammate Peter Suapanki, did well to recover and indeed pick up some key points. Neil Bamber round off the top 15, the priority ahead of Tom Payne, with Simon Wareham in 17th place, finishing ahead of Pedro Marimon Cladera, who couldn't quite keep up, but the Spaniard in the end was just able to sneak ahead of Roddy van der Meijden, who ran out of fuel at the finish line. Remco Pleister took 20th place for Raging Turtle Racing, and outside that top 20, we did see in 21st place none other than Titus de Jong, his teammate, a lap down as classified ahead of none other than what was George Mattock, and also Frankie D and David Elliott. It was sadly an early retirement from the race for so many drivers after that open lap incident, including none other than what was there Tim Hendrickson, and we also did see difficulty for Daniel Ortuga, Mark Beckhouse and David Kennedy, and then we did see non-starts for both Nico Heinen and also Dennis Johansson. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, as quickly as the racing started here in the Netherlands, it has finished for rounds 9 and 10 of the championship. But whilst our circuit has fallen silent, our broadcast will not fall silent permanently, because we're going to step away for approximately 5 minutes, and we will then be back for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. And goodness me, I suspect these interviews are definitely going to be quite spicy, so don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. You won't want to miss them. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it was an absolutely terrific round of racing tonight. There's no doubt about it. There were highs, there were lows, and definitely there were a few blows between our drivers. And one driver found himself right in the heat of it all, from start to finish, was none other than Brian Kelly, who now joins me in the interview room. Good afternoon to you, Brian. What a round it was. And after what was a bit of a disappointing round at Ridskogen last time for yourself, well, the results may not have been all on the podium today, but it definitely looks like you had a lot more fun out of there.
Yeah, I really enjoy this track. There's so many unique aspects of it, especially that real high banked corner. That one's a ton of fun. There's a couple lines that I think are really quick there. So yeah, I love the track. Um, was not very happy with the heat race. Um, I think I started sixth and I just went backwards. So that was a little frustrating. I think there's some areas where I went for an overtake where it slowed me up in the next section, or um, just mistakes like that where I think my racecraft could have been better choosing when to go for a move. Um, but yeah, unfortunately, I saw myself going backwards in that. Um, the feature race I was pretty happy with. I was really hoping for a win here, but yeah, with Adam and I think what was that Marcus? Yeah, they're both really quick, and I know Marcus. He's been fuel saving the last couple races, so um, he's been really quick overall in terms of race pace. So I'm happy with the third. I wish I could have got another win, but it was a fun race.
Oh, it was. I mean, you kept us entertained all the way through at the second race, no doubt about it. But just coming back to the qualifying session today, of course, a 10-minute open qualifying session at a circuit where there's so many banked corners and there's so many points where you're full throttle. I can imagine once you got your initial banker lap on the board, you're probably very quickly just looking to try and find the slipstream off of somebody.
Yeah, I came out and I don't know how Adam got out of the pit so quick. But I was just outside of Adam's draft. So I saw him starting to tire warm in the qualifying session. And so I decided I'm gonna say no tire warming. I'm just gonna see if I can get into Adam's draft. If I could have done that, I think I would have set a really nice lap. But I was just maybe 3/10 outside of his draft in the qualifying session. So um, yeah, that was about the best I could do without the draft. So I'm happy with my pace. But yeah, these open qualifying sessions are difficult.
Well, it was a bit of a difficult session, and like you mentioned earlier, the first race, our round 9 sprint, was a tough race as well. Seeing you go to 10th place in the end, from your perspective, we did see the top 10 sort of weave in and out from itself, in the fact we had a top 6 that sort of came together at one point, and the rest fell back, and then it all made its way back together. How do you find managing that? Because I can imagine it must have been frustrating to think you want to go forward, but you're fighting with everyone around you. You're never getting a chance to go forward as such.
Yeah, and this track is really difficult because it's like you can't just think about the corner ahead. You need to think like two or three corners ahead for setting something up. And I was probably seeing red a little too much and trying to maybe defend a position where it would have been a lot better to drop back and follow and catch up. But yeah, I wasn't too worried going for moves because I did see the top three were fighting quite a bit, so I didn't think that like they would get too far away. But yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of room for me to learn here.
Well, might be some room for improvement and to learn from, but one thing we definitely saw you didn't need to teach or learn from was in the feature race, another smart bit of strategy. We saw you decide to run in the lead for quite some time after getting through the initial fighting, and it all looked to be going so well at the front. Did you feel as though you executed your strategy perfectly?
Yeah, my strategy was pretty much try to keep everybody out of my draft once I got to P1. I think if I if I could have gotten in front a little bit quicker, I think I might have been able to stay out of the draft after that pit stop. But those opening couple laps, I struggled to get around. I think it was Kevin and Chris. Um, so yeah, if I got around them a little quicker, I think I just on pace, I could have maybe gotten a win. But unfortunately, yeah, I did not make my overtakes quick enough there.
All fair, and where if it can be pinned down to that, it's always something to look back on. But the flip side of the coin being the fact that you found yourself in the top three at the end, you were guaranteed a podium. Although I do have to ask, did you feel as though coming through the final lap into those last couple of corners, being the lead car, it was a bit of a, you know what, I've done everything right, but I'm in the wrong place now in this group to win this race?
Yeah, that last lap was really tough. I kind of figured if I could hold the outside into that high banked corner, I might have gotten pretty far ahead. So I really didn't want to give up when we were going three wide. I think I made a little too much of an optimistic move, trying to hold that three wide. And in hindsight, it probably would have been better just to drop back and then get a really good draft out of the final corner. It seems like that's what Marcus did, and that worked out for the win. So, um, yeah, unfortunately, it's tough to make those decisions in a split second. But yeah, my strategy didn't quite work out there.
Well, it may not have worked out, and like you say, it's split-second decision-making, but still, you delivered a brilliant podium after the changes of the sprint race. And that brings our time in Europe to a close, but we're heading to circuits more local to you next week, starting with the Bow Isle Park circuit in Detroit. What can we expect from you there?
I believe that's a street circuit. Not super familiar with it, but yeah, the street circuits, those ones are tough. They're very easy to accidentally put a wheel wrong and ruin your race. So that's going to be a tough one. It'll be really interesting to see how people do. It'll be a lot of trying to stay clean. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one.
Oh, brilliant. Well, we look forward to seeing you take on the streets of Detroit and show us what you can do there, as we've seen everybody try to avoid those walls, no doubt about it. But just before we do let you go, Brian, of course, at this point, we'd normally say, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to? But we're going to do things a little bit differently today. We've raced across the European continent. If you had to add one circuit to the European calendar for this series, what would it be?
Man, I don't know. I feel like I was really happy with the track selection that we had. I gotta say, if I had to swap one out, it maybe would have been the last track we were at, Rudskogen. But yeah, I think it's been a ton of really good racings, and I'm really happy with the tracks that we chose. So I wouldn't change anything really.
Oh, absolutely fair. Well, sometimes don't change the formula because it's already perfect. But with that, Brian, thank you for joining me in the interview room this evening. It's been a pleasure to chat to you and to hear about your achievements, particularly in the feature race. And we look forward to seeing whether you can make it onto the podium once again, if not take the win in Detroit in a week's time. But until then, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Paul.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Brian Kelly, and well, things on the up, it would seem, for the 321 Privateer. However, talking about there a degree of what was frustration in the sprint race in particular, that 10th place, just not what he was hoping for. And it really was the back and forth of the fighting and not being able to really progress in that order. The feature race, meanwhile, he was a lot happier with, and was really able to pin down the fact that he was expecting that he'd done enough, perhaps, to be able to clear the draft of the cars behind in the closing stages and therefore not have to run what was the effective risk of Marcus Byfeld and also Adam Miles being right behind him at the close and able to catch back up. However, the reality was different, and instead what he now realises is that initial battling he had to go through with the likes of the drivers who started towards the very front of that top 15 inversion, such as Kevin Budgeon and company, that's what just held him up a little bit, albeit fairly, and that was the difference between him having a runaway win, such as at Alton Park in the feature, and having to hold on. And he thought he'd done the right thing of going high at the final corner to try and carry a bit more speed and slow the rate of progress of Miles and Byfeld, but in the end, it wasn't quite enough. But still, his positive spirit is showing, and for Brian Kelly, I'm sure another win is on the cards soon enough. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got more interviews to come. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back within the next 30 seconds. And well, ladies and gentlemen, as he makes his way into the pits on the replay footage, he makes his way into our interview now. Joining me is none other than Adam Miles. Good evening to you, Adam, and well, what an evening it has been. You've been Mr. Second Place today, with second in qualifying, second in the sprint, and second in the feature race. Something tells me, however, you would have liked a win in amongst all that.
Yeah, but there's a championship at stake, so I don't think I can be too disappointed with it. Steff didn't have the best second race, so I suspect I probably gained a few points on him in the championship. But qualifying was good. Just didn't have a slipstream like Marcus did, so I was happy with the lap given the slipstream I had. And then yeah, the two results were both decided coming out the final corner. Unfortunately, just not always in my favour.
Oh, indeed. Not quite the way you wanted it to go. Like you said, the final corner really being the make or break at the very end of both races. But bringing it back a little bit in terms of how the day started in qualifying, second place, and it looked over some time you were going to be taking pole position without a slipstream until one of the local heroes, the Dutch contingent, of none other than Tim Hendrickson, managed to snatch that pole position away. Were you a bit surprised at how quick you were without the toe?
No, I've got good pace. I didn't think Tim actually took the pole. It was Marcus Byfelt who took the
Oh,
pole
yes,
with
my
the slipstream.
apologies.
So, yeah, I don't know if Tim had slipstream, but yeah, I watched his lap back, and he had basically an entire lap. So to be within a tenth of pole, I was happy with that. Couldn't really have done any better.
Oh, indeed, it was a superb job for yourself. And then going into the race, well, the race very different from qualifying. We saw you up the front of the sprint race for the entirety of it, but it was a 10-car pack that every so often threatened to start to split. How did you find it being towards the front end of it?
It was good fun. We haven't seen Tim on track not only in this championship but generally in the Skippy for, I don't know, must be about a year or so. So he likes a knife fight. I knew he would take any door I left open into any corner. So I was just trying to be sensible and not get shuffled backwards. I mean, it's fine to drop back to P2, maybe P3, but once you're at fourth and fifth, you just get stuck in a slipstream train. You can't make a move into turn one. So I was happy to fight, but also cognizant of the fact that fighting can sometimes lead to incidents. So I was just trying to stay in the top three generally, and I think probably made a good job of that.
Oh, most certainly you did. And we did see you land that strong second place finish in the sprint. And going into the feature race, of course, strategy on the mind. We saw you take the approach, which was to try and undercut the field. And it looked like you'd picked the right time. Was that always the plan? Or was it perhaps based on the fact there was so much fighting going on in the opening couple of laps?
I mean, I always plan my fuel strategy around what is the earliest lap I stop if I need to. Um, I spent I think I did 4 laps just of fuel saving. I could see the train was there. It didn't feel to me, at least around P10 or 11, wherever I was, it didn't feel too much like fighting, but we just didn't seem to be making great speed. Maybe because the fighting was further up ahead of me, but yeah, I could see I was 3 seconds off the lead. I thought if I pit now, have a quick stop, put in some good laps, I might be able to reel that 3 seconds in. As it turned out, I think Brian came out about a second and a half ahead, and Marcus a little bit less than that. So yeah, it was fine. I just could have done with a few more laps, and I could have maybe jumped a few more, maybe jumped Brian, maybe jumped Marcus, but yeah.
Well, whilst you weren't able to quite jump them, what it did lead to us seeing was an absolutely titanic battle for the win on the final lap. 3 wide to line, and in the end, missing out by only a thousandth, according to our timing tower. I mean, I bet you were perhaps in your seat at that point, just egging the car along, thinking that might just push it across the line first.
Yeah, something like that. The side draft in these cars is so powerful. I knew, given where I was and coming out the corner, I would get past Brian. I just didn't know whether Marcus was going to be able to get past me. And I think if I'd picked the right hand side of Brian, I would have picked up his side draft, and Marcus would have had a weaker one. But as it was, he had my side draft while I had Brian's side draft. So it was effectively a double side draft for Marcus. If I'd gone the other way, I think I would have probably got ahead of them both. But in the moment, you're trying to pick what gap exists. Was there a gap on the inside? I look back at the replay, maybe there was, but equally I could have just run into the back of Brian. So not too disappointed. Yeah, if the finish line had been another 5 centimeters, 10 centimeters earlier, it would have been my win. So you can never be too disappointed when a win gets sort of taken away I guess it's taken away from Brian, but you know, when you're in the fight for the win, coming out the last corner, you've had a pretty good race either way.
Oh, 100%. If you're right up there at the front, at the very end, you've done something right at the least. It wasn't quite the perfect result, but you came close in both. But a huge haul of points, and your main championship rival of Steff Herrmann, of course, having a bit of a difficult round. He may have picked up his first win of the season in the sprint, but he didn't quite keep his record of top fives together in the feature race. We head to Detroit. That's our next venue. How can you get close to the Steff Herrmann there?
I mean, Detroit's one of my favorite tracks. I think I like the street circuits where there's risk of damaging the car. So Chicago, Long Beach, Belle Isle, I love all three of those tracks. So looking forward to it. I do go well there. I don't know about Steff, but I guess we'll find out in a week's time.
Oh, indeed we will. And just as we get ready to let you go, as we would normally do, we'd say, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out? But we're going to do things a little bit different today. I asked Brian this question only moments ago. We've visited Europe and we're leaving it behind for the rest of the season. If you could add one circuit from Europe to the calendar, what would it be?
I like technical tracks where the passes come a few and far between. So something like Knockhill or Cadwell Park, a sort of classic British club track where narrow, you know, just enough width for maybe 3 skippies at the best, and then every pass is difficult because there's no just long slipstreamy straight. So I'll take one of those two, I think.
Oh, absolutely fair. Well, you never know, ladies and gentlemen. Based on that, we may see Cadwell Park make its way onto the calendar at some point. But with that, Adam, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your time this evening, and well done on second place finishes back-to-back in both races. We look forward to seeing you take on the risk versus reward of the streets of Detroit in a week's time. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks, Paul.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Adam Miles, and well, what a round it was for him in the end, able to put together a brilliant pair of second place finishes. Of course, not what he wanted, and in both races, the same story as he mentioned there, just pipped to the post by another driver with the battle of the side draft and the slipstream. And well, perhaps he could have done it better, perhaps he could have positioned himself better, particularly on the exit of the final corner in the feature race, but also respecting the fact that the reality is it's a huge haul of points, it's a very consistent haul of points, and it means he closes down the championship gap to Steff Herrmann, and that's the number one priority. He's got the championship in the mind rather than individual results, and that is Adam Miles at his very best, of course, and that's why the number 85 driver right now will head to Detroit thinking one thing and one thing only: how can I close that gap down even more at a circuit he absolutely likes? Because, as he mentioned there, the streets of Detroit, well, they're unforgiving. Get it wrong, and you may find yourself in the wall, and that's your race one and done. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be at one and done after one more interview. But who's it going to be with? Well, we're about to find out. Be back in about 20 seconds' time. And so, for our final interview this evening, ladies and gentlemen, we look now to Klaus Biedermann, who joins me for the first time this season in the interview room. Good evening to you, Klaus, and well, what a day it's been for yourself. It's been up, it's been down, it's been a bit around as well, but how have you found it at Circuit Zandvoort?
Yeah, I like to drive in Zandvoort. Hello, Paul. Nice to meet you.
Oh,
yeah,
likewise.
The first race was a little bit difficult. I had to pick up a new nose.
Oh, indeed, a challenging first race, losing the nose of the car, although race number 2 was a little bit easier. Although, before we talk about the races in more detail, firstly, I've got to ask, the livery on the car, are you a big fan of coffee by chance? Because it looks like it's covered in coffee beans.
Exactly. I'm a favorite coffee drinker. I love coffee, and I drink coffee in different styles. And yes, I'm a fan of coffee. And I want to make something what is not too strong. I want to make a little bit funny design.
Oh, well, to be fair, the livery is perfect for yourself. It suits you well. And coming into things that perhaps started off stronger than in previous rounds, qualifying 13th on the grid. Were you happy with that lap?
Yes, it was the last lap, which was fast. and I was really happy. I expected some places more behind, and so I'm really happy with the qualifying. It was a good lap for me, and I'm not the best qualifier, so yes, that's really great.
Oh, fantastic. Well, a good start to you over that qualifying lap, but in the sprint race, unfortunately, it all went a bit wrong. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, in the first corner, there was an accident, and I decided to go outside, and I have to steer more to the outside than I want. So I was in the gravel, then I steered a little bit back, but another car goes on the left side from the beached car, and so he cuts my nose. Then the speed was so slow on the straights that I decided to change the nose to have a nice driving, and it was place 24. There was nothing to make,
Oh,
but
indeed.
it was a relaxed driving.
All fair play. Well, you got to relax either way. Did you pick up any more time perhaps then whilst you got to relax and just practice your lines?
Excuse me again, please, the question.
Sure. Whilst you were relaxing towards the end of the sprint race, did you perhaps find an opportunity to gain some more lap time?
Oh, sorry. Sometimes my English is a little bit blocked, especially when I'm tired like now.
Oh, no worries at all. We'll move on to the feature race, or race 2. That one, good start from yourself. 12th place finish in the end. One of your strongest races of the season.
Yeah, I'm really happy with this. I was close to the 11th place, but it was not. I did a little mistake from trying to overtake the 11th then to the finish line. But it's really fine to come from 24 to 12th place is a really nice improvement. And especially there was a big accident in the first lap where I came through with 4 incident points, but no damage. And so this was a really strong one. And then I said, okay, I'm through the big crash. And then I met Rowdy van der Meijden. And we had a really good race, driving fair together. And just if one guy was making a mistake, the other guy was possible to overtake. And so we drafted ourselves a little bit more to the front, and so we won positions. And luckily, we found together after the pit stop directly. It was just sad that Rowdy had a little bit too less fuel in the car, so he cannot close up in the last lap. But for me, it was a really nice race with, for me, good lap times, with no more big problems.
Oh, indeed. It was a very good race.
Things.
We'll say after you.
I enjoyed it.
Oh, fair play. Well, glad to hear you enjoyed the second race. And like you say, to go from 24th all the way through to 12th, a brilliant effort and some good battles along the way. So a good haul of points today. Next up is Detroit. What is your plan for Detroit?
I really like the track, but I really have problems in 2 or 3 corners there. I'm not really fast there, but I really like the track. So we will see what happens. Possible I have to start a little bit more from the back in Detroit. But yeah, I really like the track, and I'm looking forward to it, to have a result again between 10 and 15 like this. And I hope that one time I got this result in the end of the first race. So that I don't have to start from the backside, because the first races are this season doesn't run well with the first races. So I'm working on my improvement.
Oh, fair play. Well, we look forward to seeing whether you can continue to move forward at Detroit in a week's time. But just as I get ready to let you go, Klaus, is there anyone you would like to give a mention or a thank you to on the broadcast?
Yes, it's amazing. I really like your broadcast, and every time, every week, I take my time and watch the complete broadcast again. So to see the race from your way, and it's really nice. I like it. I really like it how you do it, and so perfect.
Oh, thank you, Klaus. Well, I do appreciate the compliment. And, well, I'm sure yourself alongside many have enjoyed the show tonight. But we have to say a big thank you to you for joining me for an interview. It has been a blast. We'll leave it there for now, and we'll catch you in a week's time in the US of A. Until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you. Have a great week.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Klaus Biedermann. And, well, I can tell you one thing, even if English may not be his first language, he's a bit tired. He definitely there could put together an absolutely brilliant set of sentences to tell us about his experiences today. And, well, I can tell you one thing, Klaus has enjoyed himself. There is no doubt about it. Speaking out qualifying there, quite happy with his lap, given all things considered, with regards to the potency of the draft and the fact that lap times were getting quicker and quicker as the session went on. And his final lap there, putting him right in the middle of the pack. However, unfortunately, in the sprint race into turn number 1, it all went very wrong early on. But he mentioned there the fact, once he got the car repaired, he decided to get back out on circuit and just take it easy, get some laps in, and make sure he kept the momentum going. And in the feature race, well, how about that? 24 through to 12th in the end, albeit had to avoid all the chaos and carnage of the exit at turn number 3, and he did so despite a bit of a tap to the car. He didn't feel as though there was any damage on the car despite registering contact, and he just carried on there. And in the end, the coffee bean machine made its way all the way to a very close run to the top 10. He was a bit gutted not to be able to take 11th place over Kevin Budgeon right at the end. He just picked the wrong time to try and look for the move, but still, it's all a learning experience. And for Klaus Biedermann, I can imagine in Detroit, if he can match up the results from today without the difficulties of the sprint race, I think he's going to be a very happy man as he chases down those top 15 finishes. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, we conclude our interviews there. But let's take a recap of who we've interviewed tonight. And so we can see we have interviewed 3 of our privateers today. A big thank you to all 3 of them for their time. We started off with none other than Brian Kelly, the privateer from the US of A, who enjoyed, of course, a brilliant feature race to a podium, but couldn't quite make things work out in the sprint race. We then heard from Mr. Second Place today, and that was Adam Miles, who in the end wanted the wins, but still be very happy with the second places, knowing it closes the ground to the championship leader, Steff Herrmann. And then lastly, we heard from the man who was in the mid-pack all day, albeit race number 1 didn't quite work out for him, but race number 2 was a race of dreams. It was Klaus Biedermann there in the coffee machine. A big thank you to all 3 of our drivers, and a huge well done to them for their brilliant performances. But with that, it's now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the Skip Barber Community Trophy, or perhaps thinking to yourself, you know what, I want to be on the grid for that because that looks fun, or I want to show everybody how it's done in the Skippy, well, for all that and more, we definitely recommend you join our official Discord. Invite link available on screen, as you can see there, and indeed, you won't find a more vibrant and welcoming community when it comes to all things the Skip Barber Formula 2000 machine on iRacing. We'd also like to take a big moment to say a thank you to our sponsors for this season, who do include, of course, none other than Musical Money, their web address being www.musical-money.co.uk. And, well, to tell you about Musical Money, it's the quick, easy and safest way to turn your unwanted musical equipment into money. No matter what your equipment may be, if you want to sell it, Musical Money is there to buy it, thereby taking the hassle out of selling your unwanted musical equipment. And with their groundbreaking website, as shown on screen, well, selling your musical equipment could not be easier for a website which has put the user experience at the core of its design. So why not check out the website of www.musical-money.co.uk today to find out more. Also, we need to say a big thank you to our other sponsor for this season, and that is the Old Kit Racing Team. Established in 2024, Old Kit Racing Team aims to prove that age is just a number in the world of racing. Headed by Geoff Randall, the team races in multiple disciplines, but is especially dedicated to the Skip Barber Formula 2000 machine. Regardless of the car, they aim to keep their racing fair and close, whilst also respecting the fact that mistakes can happen even to the very best. So if you'd like to know more about the team, be sure to head to their Twitch channel, which you can see on screen now, and that's at twitch.tv twitch.tv/oldkidsracer, where you can check out their racing, including their onboard perspectives on the Skip Barber Community Trophy. And you can see there, of course, the preview of the racing from tonight. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, a huge thank you to our sponsors, without whom this would not be possible. But now, who is going to make the art of the possible real when it comes to next round? Because in rounds 11 and 12, we make our way to the USA for the first of many an evening in the US of A. And it all begins in the state of none other than what is, I do believe, well, in fact, I've forgotten the state there, and, well, we head to Detroit, and we are going to be seeing our drivers take on the no longer in place, but once absolutely loved Detroit Grand Prix circuit at Belle Isle. And whilst our drivers get ready to take on the circuit in Michigan, there we go, I figured out the state at long last. I went from a mental catalogue. We'll see our drivers take on the first street circuit of the season and see whether they can find the balancing act between the walls and the tarmac and get it absolutely spot on. So come join us on Sunday, the 25th of January 2026, as the season story carries on and we complete the first half of the season. But until then, we have been the Skip Barber Community Trophy. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. You've been tuning into a Paul Walsh production. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, like our drivers, remember to stay on track. Good night.